Farms are meant to nourish and provide, but some across the United States hide dark secrets that refuse to rest. From shadowy figures moving between barns, to unexplained screams echoing across open fields, to apparitions appearing near old silos, these haunted farms remind us that the land remembers more than we think. Tonight, we explore 25 of the most haunted farms in America, where tragedy, mystery, and restless spirits linger long after the sun sets. Waverly Farm, nestled deep in the rolling hills of rural Kentucky, is a place steeped in history, folklore, and lingering mystery. Though its fields once flourished with crops and livestock, the farm has long been the source of strange and unsettling tales that have captivated locals for generations. Residents and visitors alike report seeing ghostly farmers tending the fields under the moonlight, hearing barn doors slam violently with no wind to push them, and witnessing shadowy figures moving near the silo in the dead of night. Waverly Farm is not just a relic of rural life, it is a haunting testament to the past, a place where the echoes of history refuse to rest. The weathered farmhouse, its paint peeling and shutters hanging askew, casts long, angular shadows across the overgrown fields. The barns, once bustling with activity, stand silent and imposing, their wooden walls scarred by time. Rusted farming equipment lies scattered across the property, half buried in grass and weeds, and the silo towers over the land like a silent sentinel. There is a weight to the air here, an unshakable feeling that the farm remembers its past, a past filled with toil, hardship, and the lives of the people who once worked this land. Locals often recount sightings of ghostly farmers moving through the fields after sunset. These figures are described as semi-transparent, their outlines flickering like candlelight in a breeze. Some are seen bent over in familiar farming postures, harvesting crops or tending to animals that no longer exist. One visitor described standing at the edge of the cornfield late at night when a figure emerged, stooped over, as if working the soil. When he blinked, the figure vanished into the darkness, leaving behind only the faint scent of hay and earth. Others report seeing multiple apparitions simultaneously, men and women moving through the fields in careful, deliberate motions, replaying a life that ended long ago. The barns on Waverly Farm are often the focus of the most unnerving activity. Visitors describe barn doors slamming with no wind to account for the sound, sometimes so forceful that it shakes the surrounding structure. Some explorers have reported hearing the sound of hooves clattering along empty stalls, or the creak of floorboards beneath invisible feet. One person recalled entering a barn late in the evening and feeling a sudden chill as if someone had passed directly behind them, only to find the space empty. The combination of slamming doors, moving shadows, and unexplained noises gives the barns a reputation as a focal point for the farm's lingering energy, as if the souls of those who once labored here continue their nightly routines long after death. Near the silo, the atmosphere is particularly unsettling. Shadowy figures are often reported moving near the base, or seen climbing ladders that lead to nowhere. On some nights, witnesses describe hearing muffled voices, whispers, or low murmurs emanating from the structure itself. One local recounted watching a shadowy figure ascend the side of the silo, pausing at the top as if surveying the land, before vanishing entirely. Others have reported small lights flickering around the silo at night, appearing briefly before disappearing into darkness, as though the building itself is a beacon for spectral activity. Cold drafts and sudden chills are also common at Waverly Farm. Visitors frequently feel abrupt temperature drops as they move across the property, especially near the barns, farmhouse, or silo. One explorer recalled walking down a path between fields when a sudden gust of icy air swept past him, accompanied by the faint sound of someone calling a name that echoed into the night. Despite careful observation, no natural explanation could account for the phenomenon, lending credence to the idea that Waverly Farm is haunted not just by sight and sound, but by the very essence of those who once worked the land. The farm's landscape itself contributes to the haunting sensation. Even the wind seems to carry whispers here, rustling through the corn and wheat as if echoing conversations from long ago. Every corner of the property, the farmhouse porch, the rickety fence lines, The abandoned well can conceal a fleeting apparition, a whisper, or a cold gust that seems alive with intention. Those who walk the land report that Waverly Farm reacts to their presence, as if acknowledging intruders in the realm of the unseen. The haunting of Waverly Farm is inseparable from its history. Each ghostly figure, slammed door, flickering light, or sudden chill is a fragment of the lives once lived here. The farm preserves the memory of generations who toiled in the fields, worked the barns, and cared for the animals, their presence lingering in a cycle of perpetual labor beyond death. Visitors cannot help but sense the weight of these lives, the residue of countless years etched into the soil, wood, and stone of the property. For those who venture onto the land at night, the experience is unforgettable. Ghostly farmers move silently across fields, barn doors slam with violent force, and shadowy figures linger near the silo, often disappearing when approached. Cold drafts sweep unexpectedly through the fields, and faint whispers or muffled cries echo in the darkness. Waverly Farm is more than a historic homestead. It is a living memory of the past, a place where the boundaries between the living and the dead are blurred, and where history, tragedy, and the supernatural converge to create a haunting that will continue to intrigue and unsettle all who dare to step onto its land. Roanoke Farm, nestled in the rolling countryside of Mississippi, is a place that seems frozen in time, yet echoes with a presence that refuses to rest. The sprawling property, once a thriving homestead with barns, stables, and wide pastures, has long been the subject of eerie tales told by locals and explorers alike. Visitors report seeing phantom horses roaming the empty fields, unexplained footprints appearing in the mud after storms, and barns that creak and groan as though still occupied, even when the property is deserted. Roanoke Farm is more than a historic farm. It is a place where the natural and supernatural seem to intersect, preserving the memory and energy of its past inhabitants in ways that continue to unsettle anyone who ventures onto the land. During the day, the farm can appear idyllic. Sunlight filters across sprawling pastures, rustling the tall grasses and illuminating the weathered fences that stretch across the property. The farmhouse itself, aged and sturdy, retains its original charm with wooden siding, shuttered windows, and a wide porch overlooking the fields. Yet even in daylight, a subtle unease permeates the property. The barns stand silent, their doors hanging slightly ajar, and the stables, once bustling with life, sit empty except for the occasional gust of wind that rattles boards and shakes loose nails. Those who linger here report a feeling of being watched, an intangible presence that seems to move alongside them as they explore the fields and structures. One of the most frequently reported phenomena at Roanoke Farm is the appearance of phantom horses. Witnesses describe spectral equines emerging from the mist in the early morning or late evening, moving across the pastures with slow, deliberate grace. These horses often appear solid at first, their coats glossy under moonlight or filtered sunlight, but vanish when approached, leaving no trace behind. One visitor recounted standing at the edge of a field when a group of 3 horses appeared, grazing quietly as though they had always been there. As he stepped closer to observe them, the horses vanished, leaving only the sound of distant hooves fading into silence. Others have reported seeing a single horse galloping along a fence line that has long since collapsed, only to disappear behind a tree or into the tall grass without ever disturbing the landscape. Equally mysterious are the unexplained footprints that appear in the mud surrounding the barns and pastures. After rainstorms, visitors often find impressions of horses or boots in places where no animals or people have recently been. The footprints vary in size and depth, some large and heavy as though from a draft horse, others smaller, delicate, and almost human in shape. One explorer described walking across a muddy paddock early in the morning, noticing a series of deep hoofprints leading from the barn toward the pasture, yet no horses were visible, and the tracks ended abruptly in a patch of tall grass. These unexplained signs leave a haunting impression, reinforcing the idea that Roanoke Farm is a space where the past continues to leave its mark. The barns themselves are centers of persistent paranormal activity. Even when completely empty, They creak and groan, as if animals and humans are still inside. Visitors often report hearing the shuffle of hooves across straw-covered floors, the clink of tack hanging on walls, or the distant murmur of a voice calling out to unseen workers. One night, a local resident who ventured into the main barn reported a sudden, icy draft that swept through the structure, accompanied by the unmistakable sound of a horse snorting and shifting its weight on the floor. Despite thorough inspection, the barn remained empty, the air heavy and still, with only the creaking boards and shadows hinting at its unseen occupants. Shadows and fleeting figures are also common across the property. Walkers along the fields report seeing tall, dark shapes moving near the tree lines or along the fences, often just at the edge of vision. Some describe fleeting glimpses of people in overalls or long coats, figures who vanish when approached, leaving only the impression of human movement across the landscape. These sightings are often accompanied by a sense of being followed, or a sudden chill that runs across the skin, as if the farm itself is aware of those who dare to enter its domain. The farm's landscape amplifies its haunting qualities. Rolling hills, dense woods at the edges of fields, and overgrown pathways create an environment where shadows shift unexpectedly, and echoes travel in unnatural ways. Every corner, whether the farmhouse porch, the barn interiors, or the pasture edges, can conceal a ghostly figure, an unexplained sound, or a sudden chill. Visitors frequently report that the farm seems to react to their presence, with creaking doors, shifting shadows, or distant hoofbeats, intensifying as they move deeper into the property. The haunting of Roanoke Farm is inseparable from its history. Phantom horses, mysterious footprints, creaking barns, and fleeting human figures are not random occurrences. They are echoes of a life that once thrived on this land. The farm preserves fragments of its past, allowing visitors to sense the lingering presence of those who worked, lived, and cared for the animals long ago. Each shadow, each imprint in the mud, and each whisper of movement serves as a reminder that the past refuses to remain buried, instead embedding itself in the farm's landscape, waiting for the living to notice. For those who venture onto Roanoke Farm, the experience is unforgettable. Phantom horses roam the pastures, mysterious footprints appear in the mud, and the barns creak with unseen activity. Shadows move just beyond perception, cold drafts sweep across fields, and the echoes of hooves, voices, and distant murmurs create a haunting symphony that seems to stretch across time. Roanoke Farm is more than an abandoned homestead. It is a living testament to memory, history, and the unexplained, ensuring that its haunting continues to intrigue, unsettle, and captivate all who dare to walk its fields. Dunlop Farm, nestled in the quiet countryside of Mississippi, is a property shrouded in both history and a lingering sense of unease. Once a thriving family farm, its fields, barns, and homesteads have become silent witnesses to a tragic accident that claimed the lives of several members of the Dunlap family decades ago. Locals speak of ghostly children playing among the overgrown fields, tools moving as if guided by unseen hands, and screams echoing across the farm on nights when the wind carries strangely. The haunting at Dunlop Farm is not just a story of past misfortune, it's a presence that continues to imprint itself upon the land, drawing the curious and the brave to experience its eerie atmosphere firsthand. During the day, the farm appears picturesque. Rolling fields of grass stretch toward distant tree lines, and weathered barns and farmhouses stand as reminders of the life that once thrived here. The farmhouse, with its peeling paint and shuttered windows, seems frozen in time, and the barns creak and groan in the breeze, as if sighing under the weight of memories. Rusted tools and farming equipment remain scattered across the land, partially buried in dirt and grass, relics of a labor-intensive past. Even in daylight, there is a sense of tension in the air, a feeling that the farm retains echoes of the lives and tragic events that unfolded here, ready to reveal themselves to those willing to explore its spaces. Perhaps the most frequently reported phenomenon is the presence of ghostly children. Witnesses describe small figures darting among the fields, their laughter and playful cries carrying faintly on the wind. These children often appear translucent, their movements fleeting and almost dreamlike, as if caught between the world of the living and the dead. One visitor recalled watching two children chasing each other through the tall grass near the old barn. When she approached, the figures vanished, leaving only the rustle of grass and the faint scent of damp earth. Others report seeing several children playing simultaneously in different areas of the farm, running along the paths, climbing on fences, or pausing to look toward visitors before fading into shadows. Tools moving on their own are another hallmark of Dunleth Farm's haunting. Farmers and urban explorers alike have reported pitchforks, shovels, and rakes shifting across barn floors, leaning in places they did not stand, or even falling to the ground without human interaction. One visitor described entering a tool shed to find a hole lying diagonally across the floor, only to watch it slowly rise upright and gently lean against the wall. There was no breeze, no animal, and no human nearby. These unexplained movements create an impression that the farm itself is active, a silent observer, or perhaps a guardian of memories, manifesting traces of the lives that once filled its barns and fields. Screams echoing across the property further reinforce Dunleth Farm's reputation as a place of lingering spirits. On quiet nights, especially after storms or during dense fog, visitors have reported hearing high-pitched cries, anguished wails, or sudden shouts that seem to come from nowhere. One urban explorer described walking near the edge of the northern pasture when a piercing scream cut through the stillness. His footsteps faltered, and though he called out, there was no answer, only the echo of the scream fading into the distance. Others recount hearing multiple screams in succession, sometimes accompanied by phantom footsteps or the faint sound of objects being thrown, leaving a lasting sense of unease. The barns and outbuildings on Dunleth Farm are central to much of the paranormal activity. Doors creak and slam violently despite calm winds. Floorboards groan under no discernible weight, and shadowy figures are often seen moving just out of reach. One night, a local visitor reported standing in the main barn when he saw a fleeting figure near the hayloft, its shape indistinct but unmistakably human. As he stepped forward to investigate, the figure disappeared, and an icy draft swept through the barn, chilling him to the bone. In other accounts, visitors describe hearing the rustle of hay, the clatter of buckets, or the muted whispers of conversation, all happening within empty and abandoned spaces. Rolling hills, dense tree lines, and overgrown paths create areas of natural shadow and concealment, where figures can appear and vanish without warning. Even the wind seems to carry the memories of the past, rustling through the fields and the barns with an almost deliberate rhythm. Visitors report that the farm reacts to their presence. Doors may swing open as they pass, shadows move in unnatural ways, and sudden chills or gusts of cold air follow them along walkways and across pastures. The haunting of Dunleth Farm is inseparable from its history. The property acts as a vessel of memory, preserving fragments of the past and allowing visitors to sense the lingering presence of those who lived, labored, and perished here. Every unexplained phenomenon, whether a fleeting shadow, a cold draft, or a mysterious sound, is a reminder that the farm is alive with history that refuses to remain buried. For those who venture onto Dunleth Farm, the experience is unforgettable. Ghostly children play among the fields, tools move as if guided by unseen hands, and distant screams echo across the pastures. Shadows shift in the corners of vision, doors creak and slam without explanation, and cold drafts sweep through barns and pathways. Dunleth Farm is more than an abandoned homestead. It is a place where tragedy, memory, and the supernatural converge. The land itself seems alive with the echoes of the past, ensuring that its haunting continues to intrigue, terrify, and captivate all who dare to step into its shadowed fields and structures. Smead's Factor Farm, located deep in the heart of rural Mississippi, is a property steeped in history, folklore, and lingering unease. The farm, with its sprawling fields, aging barns, and time-worn farmhouse, has long been the source of chilling stories told by locals and explorers alike. Visitors speak of apparitions moving silently among the cornfields, phantom laughter echoing across the property, and ghostly figures appearing near the old farmhouse at night. These experiences suggest that the farm holds more than memories of agricultural life. It is a place where the past persists, manifesting in ways that continue to unsettle anyone who steps onto the land. By day, Smead's Factor Farm appears serene, almost picturesque. Tall cornstalks sway in the breeze, barns lean slightly under the weight of time, and the farmhouse, though weathered, retains a sense of sturdy presence. Rusted tools and equipment lie scattered across the fields, remnants of a bygone era when the farm bustled with life and labor. Yet even in the daylight, visitors report a subtle feeling of being watched, a sense that the farm remembers those who once worked it and continues to hold their presence within its boundaries. The stillness of the fields and the shadows cast by the aging structures create an environment that seems poised between the living world and something more intangible. The cornfields are often the epicenter of the farm's supernatural activity. Locals describe shadowy apparitions moving between the tall stalks, figures that appear human but fade when approached. One visitor recounted walking along a narrow path through the corn during twilight when he noticed a figure standing silently among the stalks. It remained motionless for several moments before slowly disappearing as he stepped closer. Others report seeing multiple figures moving through the corn at once, darting between the rows, as if tending to unseen work or replaying routines from the farm's past. These sightings are frequently accompanied by a sense of movement in the air, as if the fields themselves are alive with memories of labor and life long gone. Phantom laughter is another common phenomenon reported at Smead's Factor Farm. Visitors have heard faint giggles, whispered voices, and playful calls echoing across the property, often emerging from the direction of the cornfields or the farmhouse. One explorer described walking toward the old barn when a sudden burst of laughter rang out, clear and childish, yet impossible to trace to any person. Moments later, the sound vanished, leaving only silence and the soft rustling of leaves. In some accounts, the laughter is accompanied by footsteps, the shuffle of movement across dry earth, or the faint creak of doors opening and closing, suggesting the presence of unseen activity continuing long after the farm was abandoned. The farmhouse itself is a focal point for eerie sightings. Ghostly figures are often seen near the windows or porch, their outlines faint yet unmistakably human. Some witnesses describe figures standing silently at the edge of the porch, watching as if guarding the property, while others report seeing shapes moving inside, behind darkened windows. Doors creak and slam without wind, and visitors frequently feel sudden chills or cold drafts as they approach the house, as though the air itself is imbued with residual energy. One night, a local resident reported seeing a tall figure in a long coat standing near the farmhouse doorway, only for it to vanish as he stepped closer, leaving behind the smell of damp earth and old wood. Sounds of movement and unexplained noises are a constant feature of Smead's Factor Farm. Visitors often hear the rustle of corn stalks, the faint clatter of tools, or soft thumps across wooden floors in the barns and farmhouse. One explorer described stepping into the main barn, only to hear the unmistakable sound of a ladder shifting and a bucket being nudged across the floor. Despite the barn being completely empty, these auditory phenomena, paired with the visual apparitions, create a sense that the farm is alive with lingering spirits, replaying fragments of its past for those who wander its grounds. The landscape of the farm amplifies its haunting qualities. Rolling fields, overgrown paths, and dense tree lines create a labyrinthian environment where shadows shift unpredictably and sounds echo in unusual ways. Even the wind seems to carry whispers, rustling through the cornstalks and around the farmhouse as though carrying conversations from decades ago. Visitors often report that the property reacts to their presence. Doors may creak, shadows may lengthen, or phantom movements may intensify as they move deeper into the fields or closer to the barns. The haunting of Smead's Factor Farm is inseparable from its history. Every ghostly figure, burst of laughter, An unexplained sound serves as a reminder of the lives that once filled the property and the energy that remains embedded in the land. The farm acts as a vessel of memory, preserving fragments of its past for anyone who ventures onto its grounds. Each fleeting shadow, every echo of movement, and every chill in the air is a manifestation of the farm's lingering presence, a spectral reflection of the people, animals, and activities that defined its history. For those who visit Smead's Factor Farm, the experience is unforgettable. Apparitions move silently through the cornfields. Phantom laughter rings out across the property, and ghostly figures linger near the old farmhouse, vanishing when approached. Doors creak and slam without explanation, tools shift of their own accord, and cold drafts sweep across fields and interiors. Smead's Factor Farm is more than an abandoned homestead. It is a living archive of memory, energy, and the unexplained. A place where the boundary between past and present is blurred, ensuring that its haunting continues to intrigue, unsettle, and captivate all who dare to explore its shadowed fields and time-worn structures. Hollow Creek Farm, tucked away in the rural hills of Ohio, is a property steeped in history, neglect, and lingering mysteries. Though once a thriving homestead with barns, fields, and livestock, the farm has long been abandoned, its buildings and pastures left to weather and time. Locals and visitors report chilling phenomena, hear shadowy figures moving silently within abandoned barns, sudden and unexplained cold spots, and phantom animals roaming the overgrown fields. Hollow Creek Farm is more than a forgotten farm. It is a place where the past refuses to rest, and the presence of former inhabitants, both human and animal, lingers in every corner of the property. By daylight, Hollow Creek Farm can appear almost serene. Rolling fields stretch toward distant woods, dotted with rusted equipment and fences falling into disrepair. The farmhouse, with weathered siding and sagging porches, looks as though it could collapse under the weight of its own history, yet it maintains a strange, quiet dignity. The barns, once bustling with activity, now creak under their own age. Even in the sun, the farm gives off an unsettling feeling, a sense that it is alive with memory, quietly observing those who wander its grounds. Many visitors report an inexplicable tension in the air, as if the land itself carries a residue of the lives once lived here, replaying fragments of its past in subtle, often disturbing ways. The abandoned barns of Hollow Creek Farm are at the heart of its haunting. Shadowy figures are frequently seen moving between the broken beams and dusty haylofts, often vanishing when approached. Witnesses describe fleeting glimpses of human shapes bending over tasks, walking through stalls, or standing silently at the edge of a loft. One visitor recalled entering the largest barn late in the evening and noticing a figure at the far end, its outline blurry and dark. As he stepped closer, the figure disappeared, leaving only the echo of a footstep and the faint smell of straw and animal scent lingering in the air. Others have reported multiple figures simultaneously, moving in a pattern as if performing farm work long since abandoned. Their presence a ghostly echo of the daily lives that once filled the barns. Phantom animals are another hallmark of Hollow Creek Farm's spectral activity. Visitors report seeing shadowy shapes resembling horses, cows, and dogs roaming the fields or standing near barns. These apparitions are often accompanied by sounds hoofbeats striking the ground, low whinnies, or the soft patting of paws, but when approached, both sight and sound vanish. One witness described walking along a fence line at dusk when the silhouette of a horse appeared in a clearing. The figure remained perfectly still, and though he called out, it vanished as he stepped closer, leaving only a faint impression in the grass, as if the horse had never been there. Similarly, phantom dogs are said to run along old paths or patrol near the farmhouse, their barking or growling echoing across empty fields, adding to the farm's haunting presence. Unexplained cold spots are a common phenomenon reported throughout the property. Visitors often feel sudden chills or drops in temperature when moving through barns, along pathways, or near certain sections of the farmhouse. One explorer recounted walking across the main field on a warm summer night when an icy draft swept across him. accompanied by the soft sound of rustling grass, as though something unseen passed by. These cold spots are frequently tied to other paranormal events, such as shadowy figures appearing or objects shifting inexplicably, reinforcing the impression that Hollow Creek Farm is a place where the boundaries between the living and the dead blur. Sounds of activity often accompany the farm's visual phenomena. Witnesses report the creak of floorboards, the clatter of tools, and muffled footsteps in areas that should be silent. Doors in barns and the farmhouse are said to swing open or slam shut without any wind or human interaction. Some visitors describe faint murmurs, whispered conversations, or distant laughter, often emerging from darkened corners or echoing through the empty fields. One local recounted standing in the largest barn when he heard the unmistakable sound of a horse shifting weight on the floor, followed by a low whinny. When he approached, nothing was there, only the lingering scent of hay and earth, and the oppressive quiet that seemed to grow heavier in the absence of life. The landscape of Hollow Creek Farm adds to the farm's haunted reputation. Rolling hills, dense tree lines, and overgrown paths create natural hiding places for shadows, while the uneven terrain allows sounds to travel in eerie ways. Corners, barns, and fence lines seem to conceal movements just out of sight, and the wind carries whispers and faint echoes across the property. Visitors frequently report that the farm reacts to their presence. Doors may creak open, shadows shift, or phantom animals appear as if drawn by human intrusion. Every part of the property, the farmhouse, barns, pastures, and wooded edges feels charged with unseen energy, preserving traces of lives and activities long gone. The haunting of Hollow Creek Farm is inseparable from its history. Shadowy figures, phantom animals, sudden cold drafts, and unexplained sounds all act as reminders of the people and livestock that once inhabited the land. The property preserves fragments of its past, replaying them to anyone who enters, allowing the living to witness echoes of a lifelong ended. Each apparition, each sound, and each chill is a manifestation of memories embedded in the landscape, a spectral reflection of the farm's past. For those who explore Hollow Creek Farm, the experience is unforgettable. Shadowy figures move silently through abandoned barns. Phantom animals roam pastures, and cold drafts sweep across fields and structures. Doors creak, floors groan under unseen weight, and faint sounds of footsteps or whispers echo in empty spaces. Hollow Creek Farm is more than a forgotten homestead. It is a place where memory, history, and the unexplained converge. The land itself seems alive with the echoes of the past, ensuring that its haunting continues to intrigue, unsettle, and captivate all who step into its shadowed fields and decaying structures. Margaret Ellery Farm, nestled in the quiet hills of New Hampshire, carries a reputation that has long intrigued locals and travelers alike. Once a thriving homestead surrounded by fertile fields and dense woodlands, the farm has been overshadowed by a dark history of mysterious disappearances that have left the property shrouded in unease. Visitors to the farm report a range of chilling phenomena: phantom footsteps echoing across the fields, shadowy figures lingering near the old silos, and inexplicable lights flickering in the night. These occurrences suggest that Margaret Ellery Farm is more than an abandoned homestead, is a place where the past refuses to rest, and where the echoes of tragedy continue to imprint themselves upon the land. During the day, the farm appears deceptively peaceful. Rolling fields of grass and crops stretch toward thick stands of trees, while the farmhouse, weathered but sturdy, stands as a silent witness to decades of history. The barns and silos, some leaning under the weight of age, seem frozen in time, their peeling paint and warped boards a testament to years of neglect. Rusted farm equipment and scattered tools hint at a once thriving agricultural life, even in the sunlight. However, visitors often report an uneasy sensation, a feeling that the land itself remembers the lives and events that unfolded there. Shadows seem to move unnaturally, and faint whispers of wind through the trees carry a sense of hidden presence, as if the farm itself is observing those who step onto its grounds. The fields are frequently the epicenter of paranormal activity. Phantom footsteps are among the most commonly reported phenomena. Visitors walking along narrow paths or through tall grass often hear the sound of boots crunching across the earth behind them, even when they are alone. One traveler recounted walking toward the old barn at dusk when he distinctly heard footsteps following him through the field. Each step echoed in perfect rhythm with his own, yet when he turned around, the space behind him was empty. Others report hearing multiple sets of footsteps, some light and quick, others heavy and deliberate, moving across the fields and fading as suddenly as they begin. Shadowy figures near the silos add to the farm's unsettling presence. Witnesses often describe vague, human-like shapes lingering near the structures at the edge of the property. These figures appear to move slowly, almost gliding along the ground, and vanish when approached. One local resident recounted seeing a tall figure standing beside the largest silo one evening, its outline dark against the fading light. As he stepped closer, the figure seemed to dissolve into the night air, leaving only a faint sense of movement and a chill that lingered long after the encounter. Others have seen multiple figures in silhouette, some appearing to watch from a distance, while others move among the silos as though performing tasks long forgotten. Unexplained lights at night are another hallmark of Margaret Ellery Farm. Visitors report seeing small, flickering orbs hovering above the fields, moving along the edges of the forest, or appearing near the farmhouse and outbuildings. These lights are often brief, appearing and vanishing without explanation, and sometimes seem to respond to movement or attention. One explorer described standing in the yard at midnight when a series of faint lights began to trace the outline of the farmhouse before fading entirely. At other times, visitors report seeing lights that move along the fields as if tracing invisible paths, or glowing points that dart between trees and disappear when approached. These manifestations reinforce the feeling that the farm is active with unseen energy, a lingering presence tied to its mysterious past. The farmhouse and barns themselves are sites of eerie encounters. Doors are said to open and close without cause. Floorboards creak under invisible weight, and shadows flicker along walls and hallways. Inside the farmhouse, visitors report cold spots that appear suddenly, leaving them chilled despite warm weather outside. Some have described faint murmurs or whispered voices echoing through the empty rooms, as though the house itself is replaying fragments of conversations long ago. The barns, with their tall wooden beams and haylofts, are often the location of sightings of shadowy figures or phantom animals, adding another layer of unease to the property. Sounds of movement, whispers, and other unexplainable noises frequently accompany the visual phenomena. The rustle of crops, the sudden snap of a branch, or the faint clatter of tools in the barns can startle visitors, appearing to come from no one and nowhere. Footsteps echoing across empty fields, doors banging or creaking without wind, and occasional cries or faint laughter are reported by those who venture onto the property after dark. These auditory experiences, combined with the visual apparitions and mysterious lights, create an atmosphere that is both unsettling and compelling, drawing explorers and ghost hunters alike to uncover the farm's secrets. The landscape of Margaret Ellery Farm adds to the haunting's intensity. Rolling hills, dense tree lines, and narrow, winding paths create areas of natural concealment where shadows can move and sounds can echo in unnerving ways. Fog often rolls through the fields at night, further obscuring vision and amplifying the sense of isolation. Many visitors describe the feeling that the farm reacts to their presence cold drafts, following them across fields, lights flickering when they pause, or shadows shifting in tandem with their movements. The entire property seems attuned to those who enter, as if holding on to the energy of the past, while asserting its continued presence in the present. The haunting at Margaret Ellery Farm is inseparable from its history of mysterious disappearances. Every phantom footstep, shadowy figure, and flickering light serves as a reminder of the lives and events that remain unresolved on the property. The farm acts as a vessel for these lingering memories, replaying fragments of its past for anyone who dares to step onto its grounds. Each unexplained phenomenon, whisper, a chill, or a fleeting silhouette is a testament to the persistent presence of the farm's unseen occupants. a spectral reflection of a past that refuses to be forgotten. For those who visit Margaret Ellery Farm, the experience is unforgettable. Phantom footsteps echo across the fields, shadowy figures linger near silos, and mysterious lights dance in the night sky. Doors creak and slam without reason. Cold drafts sweep across the farmhouse and barns, and sounds of movement or faint voices haunt the otherwise quiet property. Margaret Ellery Farm is more than a historic homestead. It is a living archive of memory, energy, and the unexplained. The land itself seems alive with echoes of the past, ensuring that its haunting continues to intrigue, terrify, and captivate all who step into its shadowed fields and time-worn structures. Willow Creek Farm, nestled in the rolling hills of rural Pennsylvania, is a place where history and mystery intertwine in ways that continue to captivate visitors and locals alike. Once a thriving homestead, the farm now sits largely abandoned, its fields overgrown, barns weathered, and farmhouse standing as a silent witness to decades of activity that have long since passed. Despite its apparent stillness, Willow Creek Farm is alive with strange phenomena, earning a reputation among locals as one of the most haunted properties in the region. Witnesses report ghostly workers moving through the fields, barn doors swinging open without wind or human touch, and shadowy figures lingering near the farmhouse, creating an atmosphere where the line between past and present seems almost imperceptibly thin. During the daytime, the farm presents a picturesque, albeit slightly eerie, scene. Rows of untended crops sway in the breeze, patches of wildflowers grow where animals once grazed, and fences sag under the weight of time. The farmhouse, with its peeling paint and creaking porch, maintains a stubbornly upright posture, as if guarding the stories it holds. The barns, some partially collapsed and others holding fast against the elements, seem frozen in time. Rusted tools, old wagons, and hay scattered across the lofts hint at a past when the farm teemed with life and labor. Even in the bright light of day, visitors often feel an inexplicable tension in the air, a sense that the land remembers the lives and toil of those who once inhabited it. Shadows appear to move in the corners of vision, and the wind carries whispers that are difficult to explain. The fields of Willow Creek Farm are often the center of paranormal activity. Visitors frequently report seeing ghostly figures moving through the rows of crops, their forms appearing faint and translucent, as though they are remnants of workers from decades past. One witness described walking along a narrow path through the tall grass at dusk when he noticed a figure bent over, appearing to tend the crops. As he approached, the figure slowly dissipated, leaving only the rustling of the grass and a sudden, unnatural chill in the air. Others have reported seeing multiple figures moving in tandem, performing agricultural tasks silently, their movements precise and deliberate, yet entirely unearthly. These sightings suggest that the energy of labor and life continues to echo across the farm, replaying fragments of the past in the present. The barns on the property are notorious for strange occurrences. Doors are frequently reported to open and close on their own, swinging wide with no wind or human interaction, and slamming shut as if pushed by unseen hands. Visitors stepping into the largest barn have heard the unmistakable sound of floorboards creaking under weight that isn't there, or the subtle shift of a ladder against a wall when nothing is being moved. Some explorers have seen shadowy shapes flit between the beams or among the haylofts, vanishing as they step closer. The barns seem to act as a focal point for the farm's haunting, a repository of the memories, energy, and spirits of the farm's past inhabitants. The farmhouse itself is a site of frequent spectral activity. Shadowy figures are often seen lingering near windows or standing silently on the porch. Some visitors describe glimpsing forms moving inside the house, flickering along hallways or appearing briefly in darkened rooms before disappearing entirely. Cold drafts are common, often felt even on warm days, seeming to emanate from corners of rooms or from behind closed doors. Occasional creaks, knocks, and soft whispers accompany these cold spots, giving the impression that the house itself is replaying moments from its past. One resident recounted a tall, dark figure standing at the edge of the porch late at night, watching silently before vanishing, leaving only the scent of damp earth and old wood behind. Sounds of movement and unexplained noises add to the farm's haunting reputation. Visitors have reported hearing the shuffle of footsteps in fields or barns, faint murmurs of conversation, and the occasional burst of laughter or sigh carried on the wind. The subtle clatter of tools, the shift of objects, or the soft rumble of unseen livestock can startle even the most composed explorers, creating a palpable sense that the farm is alive with the echoes of its former residents. These auditory phenomena, paired with the visual apparitions, contribute to an atmosphere of tension, curiosity, and unease that pervades the property day and night. The landscape of Willow Creek Farm enhances the eerie experiences reported by visitors. Fog often blankets the fields in the early morning or late evening, further obscuring vision and amplifying the sense of isolation. Visitors often report that the farm seems aware of their presence. Shadowy movements intensify, lights flicker in the distance, and the sounds of phantom footsteps or whispers grow nearer as one explores deeper into the property. Every corner, fence line, and building seems charged with unseen energy, preserving traces of past lives and events. The haunting of Willow Creek Farm is inseparable from its history. Each ghostly worker seen in the fields, each swinging barn door, and each shadow lingering near the farmhouse serves as a reminder of the farm, as vibrant past and the energy that still clings to it. The property acts as a vessel for memory, allowing fragments of history to replay for those who wander its grounds. Every chilling encounter, whisper, a cold draft, a fleeting figures, a testament to the persistent presence of the farm's unseen occupants, both human and animal. Visitors to Willow Creek Farm leave with experiences that linger in memory. Ghostly figures walk through the fields, barn doors open and close without explanation, and shadowy presences move silently near the farmhouse. Cold drafts sweep across rooms and pastures. Footsteps echo where no one stands, and faint murmurs float on the evening breeze. Willow Creek Farm is far more than an abandoned homestead. It is a place where memory, energy, and the unexplained converge. The farm itself seems alive with echoes of its past, ensuring that its haunting continues to intrigue, unsettle, and captivate all who venture into its fields, barns, and time-worn structures. Red Hollow Farm, located deep in the rural expanse of New York, is a place where the natural beauty of the countryside collides with unsettling tales of the unexplained. Once a working farm, it is now largely abandoned, its barns leaning with age, fields overgrown, and farmhouse standing quietly among the surrounding woods. Despite its apparent stillness, Red Hollow Farm has long been known among locals and explorers for strange occurrences that hint at lingering presences. Witnesses report phantom animals roaming the fields at dusk, unexplained voices carried on the wind, and shadowy figures standing silently among the tall corn stalks, making the farm a site of fascination and unease for those who venture there. During the day, Red Hollow Farm appears deceptively peaceful. The fields stretch across rolling hills, dotted with the remnants of rusted farm equipment, leaning fences, and patches of wildflowers overtaking once-tended rows of crops. The farmhouse, weathered and silent, maintains a stoic presence, as if guarding its own secrets. The barns, with rotting beams and sagging roofs, stand frozen in time, their interiors filled with the remnants of daily farm life that ended decades ago. Even under the bright light of day, there is a palpable tension in the air. Shadows seem to move with a life of their own, and the faint rustle of wind through the overgrown crops can carry hints of sounds not entirely explained by nature. Phantom animals are among the most frequently reported phenomena at Red Hollow Farm. Visitors often describe seeing horses, cows, and dogs moving silently across the fields at dusk. These figures appear only briefly, shimmering in and out of sight, and disappear entirely when approached. One visitor recounted walking along a narrow path at twilight when the silhouette of a horse appeared at the edge of a clearing. It stood perfectly still for several moments, as if observing him, before vanishing into the darkness without a sound. Similarly, Shadowy dogs are said to patrol the edges of the cornfields, their shapes darting among the stalks, accompanied only by the faintest rustle of leaves and the distant echo of barking that seems to come from nowhere. These phantom animals evoke a sense of the farm's former life, a spectral reminder of the creatures that once roamed freely across its land. The cornfields themselves are often the setting for the farm's most unsettling activity. Shadowy figures are frequently seen standing silently among the tall stalks, their forms blurred and indistinct in the dim light. One explorer described walking along a path through the corn at dusk when he noticed a dark figure appearing between rows. It did not move or respond, simply standing as if frozen in observation. When he tried to approach, the figure vanished, leaving only the swaying corn and the distant calls of unseen creatures. Others report seeing multiple figures, sometimes fleeting shadows, that move between stalks, creating an impression of life persisting in the fields long after the farm was abandoned. Unexplained voices are another hallmark of Red Hollow Farm. Visitors report faint whispers that seem to come from the fields, the barns, or the farmhouse itself. These voices often repeat fragments of speech, call out names, or mimic conversations long past, creating an eerie sense that the farm is replaying moments from its history. One night, a traveler recounted hearing the sound of someone calling across the fields, their voice soft and distant, only to find that he was entirely alone. These auditory phenomena are often accompanied by other manifestations: a sudden cold draft, the movement of shadows, or the fleeting appearance of phantom animals. The combination of sound, sight, and touch creates an immersive sense of the supernatural that lingers long after visitors leave. The barns and farmhouse are also active sites for paranormal encounters. Doors are known to swing open or close without cause. Floorboards creak under unseen weight, and shadows flicker along walls and lofts. In the farmhouse, cold spots appear suddenly, often concentrated near corners or stairways. Faint murmurs echo through hallways, and the sensation of being watched is frequently reported. One visitor describes seeing a shadowy figure in the doorway of an upper room, only to have it vanish when he stepped closer, leaving a profound silence behind. Similarly, in the barns, rustling hay, shifting tools, and occasional phantom sounds of livestock contribute to an overwhelming sense that the farm's past life is still present, replaying itself in ghostly form. The landscape of Red Hollow Farm amplifies the haunting. Rolling hills, dense woods, and narrow, overgrown paths provide ample hiding places for shadows and allow sounds to carry in unexpected ways. Fog often settles in the fields at dawn or dusk, obscuring vision and heightening the sense of isolation. Visitors frequently report that the farm seems responsive to their presence. Lights may flicker across the windows of the farmhouse, shadows shift along the corn rows, or phantom animals appear when one pauses. Every corner, building, and field seems charged with a lingering energy, preserving traces of the lives and creatures that once inhabited the property. The haunting of Red Hollow Farm is inseparable from its history. Each phantom animal, each shadowy figure, and each unexplained voice is a reminder of the farm's past, a spectral echo of life that once thrived here. The property serves as a vessel for memory, allowing fragments of history to replay for those who wander its grounds. Every strange encounter, whisper, a fleeting silhouette, a sudden chill testifies to the enduring presence of those who cannot or will not leave. For visitors, the experience of Red Hollow Farm is unforgettable. Phantom animals roam the fields, shadowy figures linger among the corn, and unexplained voices echo through the night. Doors swing on their own, cold drafts sweep through the farmhouse and barns, and subtle sounds of movement reverberate across the property. Red Hollow Farm is far more than an abandoned homestead. It is a place where memory, energy, and the unexplained converge. The land itself seems alive with echoes of the past, ensuring that its haunting continues to intrigue, unsettle, and captivate all who step into its shadowed fields and decaying structures. Roswell Plantation Farm, located along the quiet banks of the Rappahannock River in Virginia, stands as a haunting reminder of America's turbulent past. Once a thriving plantation with sprawling fields and grand structures, it has long been steeped in stories of tragedy, particularly tied to the Civil War. Visitors to the property often speak of a palpable tension in the air, as if the land itself holds memories of the past. Locals recount shadowy figures of soldiers moving silently through the fields, barns that creak and groan without explanation, and mysterious lights flickering across the property, lending Roswell Plantation Farm a reputation as one of the most haunted locations in the region. During the day, the plantation exudes a serene, almost pastoral charm. The main house, though weathered by time, still bears remnants of its grandeur. Rolling fields stretch out in all directions, dotted with remnants of old fences, crumbling stone walls, and abandoned farm equipment. Barns lean with age, their timbers creaking under the weight of decades. Even in daylight, visitors often feel a subtle unease, a sensation that they are being watched. The wind, through the trees and across the fields, seems to carry whispers, echoes of voices long silenced, and shadows that shift when no one is near. The fields of Roswell Plantation Farm are often the epicenter of paranormal activity. Shadowy figures of soldiers, often described in vague silhouettes with period attire, are frequently reported moving across the pastures. One witness recounted walking along a narrow path at dusk when he noticed a dark figure standing rigidly among the tall grass. As he approached, the figure seemed to fade into the evening mist, leaving only the sound of distant footsteps and the rustle of grass in its wake. Others have described multiple figures, some marching silently along field lines, while others linger near old stone walls or the remnants of past structures, appearing to perform tasks that echo the plantation's storied past. These apparitions are often fleeting, but their presence leaves an indelible impression on anyone who encounters them. The barns on the property are notorious for strange occurrences. Visitors report doors swinging open and closed without any wind, floorboards creaking under invisible weight, and the occasional clang of metal as though tools or equipment were being moved by unseen hands. Many recount seeing shadowy figures flit across lofts or between beams, vanishing as they step closer. Some have described hearing faint voices calling out orders or speaking in hushed tones, as though reenacting moments from long ago. The barns, with their high ceilings and heavy wooden structures, seem to serve as a focal point for the plantation's spectral energy, preserving fragments of the past in an almost tangible form. Unexplained lights are another hallmark of Roswell Plantation's haunting. Visitors frequently report seeing glowing orbs moving slowly across the fields, hovering near the barns, or appearing along the tree line at night. These lights often flicker or shift direction without explanation, sometimes vanishing entirely when approached. One traveler described watching a series of faint lights tracing the outline of the main house, as if replaying the movements of its former inhabitants. Others have seen lights moving in patterns that mimic the layout of past farm activities, giving the sense that the plantation is alive with echoes of the lives that once thrived there. The main house and surrounding structures are also active with paranormal phenomena. Shadowy figures are frequently seen through windows, standing silently in darkened rooms, or moving along hallways. Cold spots often appear without warning, leaving visitors chilled despite warm weather outside. Soft whispers, faint laughter, or the muted sound of boots on wooden floors can be heard echoing through empty rooms. One visitor recounted seeing a shadowy figure standing at the top of the staircase, staring down before vanishing into the darkness, leaving only a lingering sense of unease. The combination of visual, auditory, and sensory experiences creates an immersive atmosphere that makes Roswell Plantation Farm unforgettable for anyone who steps onto its grounds. Sounds of movement, voices, and other unexplainable phenomena often accompany the visual manifestations. The distant clatter of equipment, footsteps across empty floors, and the occasional moan or sigh seem to echo from the past, filling the property with a sense of historical presence. Visitors have reported hearing faint commands shouted in the fields, the rustling of uniforms in the breeze, or the movement of figures just beyond the reach of sight. These experiences, combined with shadowy apparitions and mysterious lights, create a palpable tension that lingers long after one leaves the plantation. The landscape itself amplifies the haunting. Rolling hills, dense trees, and narrow paths create areas of concealment for shadows and allow sounds to carry in unsettling ways. Fog often blankets the fields at dawn or dusk, further obscuring vision and amplifying the sense of isolation. Visitors frequently report feeling as though the farm reacts to their presence. Lights flicker across the barns, shadows shift along the fields, and phantom soldiers appear or vanish depending on where one stands. Every corner of the property feels charged with lingering energy, as if the land itself holds the memories of those who lived, worked, and died there. The haunting of Roswell Plantation Farm is inseparable from its Civil War history. Each shadowy soldier, each unexplained light, and each creaking floorboard serves as a reminder of the struggles and tragedies that took place on the property. The land acts as a vessel for these memories, replaying fragments of its past for those willing to witness them. Every ghostly encounter, a whisper, a fleeting silhouette, a sudden chill testifies to the enduring presence of the past and the lives that remain unsettled. For those who visit Roswell Plantation Farm, the experience is unforgettable. Shadowy figures of soldiers move through the fields, barns creak as if occupied, and mysterious lights dance across the property. Cold drafts sweep through the main house and barns. Footsteps echo where no one stands, and faint whispers float on the evening breeze. Roswell Plantation Farm is far more than an abandoned homestead. It is a place where history, memory, and the unexplained converge. The land itself seems alive with the echoes of its past, ensuring that its haunting continues to intrigue, unsettle, and captivate all who wander through its time-worn fields, barns, and structures. South Mountain Farm, nestled in the rolling hills of Maryland, is a property steeped in history and mystery. Once a thriving homestead, the farm has long since fallen into partial disrepair, its fields overgrown, barns weathered by decades of neglect, and farmhouse standing as a silent sentinel over the land. Despite its quiet appearance, South Mountain Farm has gained a reputation among locals and visitors for strange and unsettling activity. Witnesses report ghostly farmers working under the moonlight, unseen hands moving old farming equipment, and shadowy apparitions lingering in the barns, making the farm a location where the past refuses to remain buried. During the day, the farm presents a picturesque yet slightly haunting image. The fields, once neatly cultivated, now stretch across the hills in wild patterns of grass and weeds. Broken fences line the property, rusted farm tools sit abandoned near the barn, and the farmhouse, though structurally sound, shows signs of age and wear, with peeling paint and shuttered windows. Even in the sunlight, there is a subtle sense that the land remembers its history. Shadows seem to move independently of the trees and structures, and the wind, through the tall grass, carries soft, almost indistinct sounds that vanish when approached. Visitors often describe a strange tension, a feeling of being observed by eyes that are invisible yet present. The fields surrounding South Mountain Farm are often the setting for the most commonly reported paranormal phenomena. Witnesses have described seeing ghostly figures of farmers working late at night, their forms translucent and ethereal, bent over unseen tasks or walking deliberately through rows of crops. One visitor recounted walking along a narrow field path after dusk when a dark silhouette appeared at the far end, stooped over as if tending to the soil. As he drew closer, the figure gradually faded, leaving only the rustle of grass and the eerie feeling of unseen labor continuing in silence. Others have seen multiple figures simultaneously, moving in coordinated patterns that suggest the echoes of past farming routines being replayed across the land. The barns of South Mountain Farm are particularly active with ghostly activity. Visitors often report shadowy figures moving among the beams and lofts, vanishing when approached, as if aware of being observed. Doors creak and swing open without wind, while the soft sound of footsteps echoes through empty corridors. Tools, wagons, and pieces of old equipment are occasionally seen shifting or moving without visible cause, suggesting the presence of unseen hands. Many have felt sudden cold drafts, particularly near corners or doorways, accompanied by the faint smell of hay and soil, reinforcing the sense that the barns themselves are imbued with lingering energy. Inside the farmhouse, phenomena are equally unsettling. Shadowy shapes are occasionally glimpsed, standing in hallways or peering from windows, often disappearing when directly looked at. Cold spots appear suddenly, leaving visitors chilled even during warm weather, while soft whispers seem to drift through rooms, carrying fragments of conversation from decades past. One witness describes seeing a faint outline of a farmer standing near the staircase, gazing silently before fading into the darkness. These experiences create a sense that the farmhouse is not merely a building, but a vessel preserving the memory and presence of those who once lived and worked there. Sounds of movement are an integral part of South Mountain Farm's haunting. Visitors often hear footsteps on wooden floors, the creak of barn doors, or the soft clatter of tools. Even when the farm is empty, unexplained voices, sometimes calling names or repeating short phrases, are frequently reported. The combination of auditory and visual phenomena produces an immersive experience for those exploring the property. A sense that the farm's past life is not just remembered but actively replayed. Even the faintest sounds, a shift of hay, a whisper in the wind, the creak of a distant bean can, evoke the presence of unseen laborers moving through the night. The landscape itself amplifies the farm's mysterious energy. Rolling hills, dense tree lines, and narrow, overgrown paths create natural hiding places for shadows and allow sounds to carry in unexpected ways. Fog often blankets the fields in early morning or late evening, obscuring vision and making shadowy figures appear closer than they are. Visitors report that the farm seems to respond to their presence. Lights may appear to flicker in the barns. Shadows shift along pathways, and ghostly figures can vanish or emerge, seemingly at will. Every section of South Mountain Farm feels charged with energy, as if the land itself remembers the labor, struggles, and lives of those who once inhabited it. The haunting of South Mountain Farm is deeply tied to its history. Each ghostly farmer, each moving tool, and each unexplained creak or whisper serves as a reminder of the work and lives of past residents. The farm acts as a vessel for memory, allowing glimpses of the past to manifest for those who explore its grounds. Every encounter, a figure appearing among the fields, a shadowy shape in the barn, a whisper drifting through the night, testifies to the lingering presence of the farm's former inhabitants. For visitors, the experiences at South Mountain Farm are unforgettable. Ghostly farmers are seen working in the fields. Unseen hands shift equipment, and shadowy forms linger in the barns. Cold drafts sweep across rooms and hallways. Footsteps echo where no one stands, and faint whispers float on the wind. South Mountain Farm is far more than a historical homestead. It is a place where memory, energy, and the unexplained converge. The land itself seems alive with the echoes of its past, ensuring that its haunting continues to intrigue, unsettle, and captivate all who wander through the fields, barns, and time-worn structures of this Maryland farm. Winter's Hollow Farm, nestled in the rural heart of Michigan, is a place where the beauty of open fields and rolling hills masks a haunting history. Once a bustling family farm, the property has fallen into disuse over the decades, leaving behind weathered barns, rusted machinery, and overgrown fields. Despite its quiet, rural appearance, Winter's Hollow has become known among locals and explorers for eerie phenomena that suggest the land is far from empty. Visitors report phantom children playing among the fields at dusk, lights flickering mysteriously within abandoned silos, and shadowy figures that vanish abruptly into the dense cornfields, creating an unsettling experience that lingers long after one leaves. By day, the farm appears peaceful and almost idyllic. Tall grasses sway gently in the wind, wildflowers blanket patches of the fields, and the farmhouse, though showing signs of age, maintains a stately presence. Rusted fences outline pastures, once filled with livestock, and barns sag with time, their wooden planks creaking under the weight of years. Even in daylight, there is an odd stillness, as though the property itself is aware of the presence of outsiders. Shadows seem to linger unnaturally long along the edges of the fields, and faint sounds, like the distant laughter of children or the clatter of tools, sometimes drift on the breeze, vanishing when approached. One of the most commonly reported phenomena at Winter's Hollow Farm involves phantom children. Many visitors recount seeing small figures darting across the fields, their movements quick and fleeting, often appearing at the edges of cornfields or near the farmhouse. One visitor described walking along a narrow dirt path at dusk when the faint silhouettes of children appeared ahead, chasing one another and disappearing between the tall stalks of corn. Despite attempts to approach them, the figures would vanish, leaving only a sense of movement and a lingering feeling of presence. Others report hearing the sound of bare feet on the grass, the faint rustle of clothing, or the giggle of children carried by the wind. Even though no living person is in sight, the abandoned silos on the property are another focal point for strange occurrences. Visitors frequently report seeing lights flickering inside the tall, cylindrical structures, sometimes moving up and down or across the interior walls as if following an unseen path. These lights often appear at night, glowing faintly through the cracks and openings, vanishing when approached. Some describe the sensation of being watched while standing near the silos, accompanied by sudden cold drafts or the distant sound of footsteps echoing inside the empty structures. The combination of visual and auditory anomalies in these silos reinforces the sense that the farm is inhabited by forces beyond the ordinary, and that the past refuses to remain confined to memory. The cornfields themselves are particularly active with ghostly phenomena. Shadowy figures are frequently seen slipping between the rows, their forms blurred and indistinct in the dim light. One witness described walking through a field just after sunset when a dark silhouette appeared a few feet ahead. It remained motionless for several moments before dissolving into the misty evening air. Others recount glimpsing multiple figures weaving silently through the stalks, vanishing before they can be fully observed. The cornfields, dense and concealing, seem to allow these specters to appear and disappear at will, creating a sense of being surrounded by unseen observers. Sounds are a significant aspect of the haunting at Winter's Hollow Farm. Footsteps, the faint echo of laughter, whispers, and the soft clatter of objects are often reported. Visitors have described hearing children calling out names or playing games, only to find themselves alone in the middle of the fields. The barns add to this auditory tapestry, with creaking beams, doors swinging without wind, and occasional soft knocks or the shifting of tools as though the farm is still operating in some spectral way. The combination of auditory and visual experiences creates an immersive atmosphere, heightening the feeling that the farm is alive with the presence of its past inhabitants. The farmhouse and barns are also sites of repeated paranormal encounters. Cold spots appear suddenly in hallways or corners. Shadows are seen moving along walls, and soft whispers are heard echoing through rooms. One visitor described seeing a fleeting figure standing in a doorway, only to vanish when he stepped closer. Others report feeling unseen, hands brushing past them, or a presence lingering in empty rooms. These experiences, paired with the activity in the fields and silos, suggest that Winter's Hollow Farm is a location where memory and energy converge, replaying fragments of the farm's life long after its decline. The surrounding landscape amplifies the haunting. Rolling hills, dense tree lines, and overgrown pathways provide natural concealment for shadows and allow sounds to travel in unexpected ways. Fog often settles over the fields in early morning or evening, creating a mystical and sometimes unnerving atmosphere. Visitors frequently report that the property seems to respond to their presence. Lights flicker within silos, shadows shift among the corn, and phantom children appear when one pauses, giving the impression that the farm is aware of those who enter. The haunting of Winter's Hollow Farm is inseparable from its history. Each phantom child, each flickering light, and each shadowy figure serves as a reminder of the farm's former life, a lingering echo of activity that refuses to fade. The property acts as a vessel for memory, allowing glimpses of the past to manifest in the present. Every ghostly encounter, fleeting silhouette, a laugh carried on the wind. A cold draft speaks to the enduring presence of those who once lived, worked, and played on this land. For those who visit Winter's Hollow Farm, the experience is unforgettable. Phantom children run across the fields, lights flicker mysteriously in abandoned silos, and shadowy figures vanish into the cornfields. Cold drafts sweep through the barns and farmhouse. Footsteps echo where no one stands, and faint whispers drift across the property. Winter's Hollow Farm is far more than an abandoned homestead. It is a place where the past lingers, memory and energy converge, and the unexplained continues to captivate all who wander its fields, barns, and overgrown paths. Crescent Farm, located along the quiet bayous of Louisiana, is a property steeped in history and tinged with tragedy. Once a bustling plantation and working farm, it has long since fallen into partial disrepair, leaving behind sprawling fields, dilapidated barns, and a weathered main house. Despite its rural charm, Crescent Farm has gained a reputation for paranormal activity that both intrigues and unnerves visitors. Locals recount sightings of apparitions of workers lost in past accidents, phantom voices calling names through empty fields and shadowy figures moving silently across the property at night, creating a haunting atmosphere that lingers in the minds of those who venture there. During the day, Crescent Farm retains a look of a traditional southern farm, with wide fields stretching toward the horizon, tall grasses swaying in the breeze, and remnants of past agricultural life scattered across the land. The barns, though weathered, still stand with creaking timbers and rusted hardware, while the farmhouse shows the signs of decades of sun, rain, and wind. Even in the daylight, there is a sense of unease. Visitors often describe feeling as though they are being watched, or that the land itself is aware of their presence. Shadows seem to move along the edges of the fields, and the wind carries faint, indistinct sounds, sometimes resembling whispers or the distant shuffle of footsteps that vanish when approached. The fields of Crescent Farm are frequently the stage for reported paranormal phenomena. Shadowy figures of laborers are often seen moving among the rows of crops, especially at dusk or during the quiet hours of early morning. Witnesses describe these figures as translucent and human-shaped, often dressed in period clothing that hints at the farm's long history. One visitor recalled walking along a narrow path near the edge of the field when he spotted a dark figure bent over, seemingly tending to the soil. As he drew closer, the figure dissipated into the evening mist, leaving only the soft rustle of grass and a lingering sense of unease. Others have reported seeing multiple figures simultaneously, walking in silent procession across the fields or performing work that mirrors the routines of the farm's past inhabitants. The barns at Crescent Farm are especially noted for their unsettling activity. Visitors often recount seeing shadowy figures moving among the beams and lofts, vanishing as they approach. Doors swing open or close with no wind. Floorboards creak as if bearing the weight of unseen feet. An occasional clanging sound suggests tools or equipment being handled by invisible hands. Cold spots often appear near corners or doorways, and the scent of hay and earth sometimes intensifies inexplicably. Witnesses have also reported hearing distant voices calling out names, soft murmurs, or brief laughter, as if echoing from a time long gone. The barns, with their high ceilings and cavernous interiors, seem to amplify these paranormal impressions, creating a sense that the farm itself is alive with residual energy. Phantom voices are another prominent feature of Crescent Farm's hauntings. Visitors frequently report hearing names called out across the fields, as though the farm's former workers are attempting to reach the living. These voices sometimes echo from the distance, carry across the barn, or whisper from the shadows of the main house. One guest described walking along the back porch of the farmhouse at twilight when she heard a man's voice clearly call her name, even though no one else was present. The sounds are often accompanied by cold drafts, flickering shadows, or sudden movements in the corner of one's eye, heightening the sense of unease and reinforcing the impression that Crescent Farm is a place where the past is never truly at rest. The main house and surrounding structures also contribute to the farm's haunting atmosphere. Visitors report sudden cold spots in rooms, glimpses of shadowy figures standing silently in doorways or hallways, and the faint echo of footsteps across empty floors. Some have seen figures appear at windows, only to vanish when approached, while others have felt unseen hands brush past them or sensed a presence lingering nearby. The combination of visual, auditory, and sensory experiences makes Crescent Farm a deeply immersive, haunted location, where every structure and open field seems charged with residual energy. The landscape itself enhances the ghostly activity. Rolling fields, dense tree lines, and narrow pathways provide concealment for shadows and allow sounds to travel in unexpected ways. Fog often drifts across the fields at dawn or dusk, creating an otherworldly atmosphere that makes ghostly figures appear closer than they are. Visitors often report that the farm seems to respond to their presence. Lights in the barns flicker, shadows shift among the fields, and phantom voices call more clearly when one stops to observe. The land itself seems alive with memory, replaying fragments of past events for anyone willing to witness them. The hauntings of Crescent Farm are inseparable from its history. Each apparition, each phantom voice, and each unexplained movement serves as a reminder of the struggles and tragedies that occurred on the property. The farm acts as a vessel for memory, allowing echoes of the past to manifest for those who walk its grounds. Every encounter, fleeting silhouette, a name called across the fields, the soft clatter of equipment, or a sudden cold gust testifies to the enduring presence of those who once labored here and whose stories remain unsettled. Visitors to Crescent Farm often describe their experiences as unforgettable. Shadowy figures move through the fields, phantom voices call out in the night, and lights flicker mysteriously in the barns. Cold drafts sweep through rooms, footsteps echo where no one stands, and whispers drift across the property. Crescent Farm is far more than an abandoned farmstead. It is a place where history, memory, and the unexplained converge. The land itself seems alive with echoes of its past, ensuring that the haunting continues to intrigue, unsettle, and captivate all who wander across its fields, barns, and weathered structures. Long after the sun has set over the Louisiana bayous, Blackwood Farm, located in the misty valleys of Oregon, is a property steeped in history, tragedy, and lingering whispers from the past. Once a thriving 19th-century homestead, the farm has long since fallen into disrepair, leaving behind crumbling barns, weathered outbuildings, and sprawling fields that have slowly succumbed to nature. Though the farm appears serene during the day, locals and visitors alike have reported unsettling experiences, suggesting that Blackwood Farm is far from empty. Witnesses describe barns moving as if pushed by unseen hands, shadowy figures traversing the open fields, and phantom animals roaming the property, creating a haunting presence that continues to captivate and terrify those who explore the land. By daylight, Blackwood Farm seems like a forgotten relic of Oregon's rural past. Fields stretch across rolling hills, dotted with the skeletal remains of once bustling outbuildings. The farmhouse, though structurally sound, shows signs of decades of weathering, with peeling paint, warped doors, and shuttered windows. Rusted farm tools and wagons lie abandoned near the barns, and overgrown pathways cut through pastures where livestock once grazed. Even under the sun, there is a palpable stillness that sets the farm apart from the surrounding countryside. Visitors often describe the sensation of being watched, shadows that move unnaturally along the tree line, and the faint creak of wood or the distant rustle of unseen movement that vanishes when approached. The open fields of Blackwood Farm are often the stage for the most commonly reported paranormal activity. Witnesses recount seeing shadowy figures moving silently through the grass, often at dawn or dusk. These figures are described as vaguely human, sometimes appearing as farmers or laborers from the 19th century, moving with a purposeful rhythm as if tending invisible crops or performing forgotten tasks. One visitor recalled walking along a narrow path at twilight when he noticed a dark shape in the distance, stooped over as though working the soil. As he drew closer, the figure dissipated into the evening mist, leaving only the sound of wind in the grass and the impression that unseen labor continued across the field. Others have reported multiple figures, moving in patterns that resemble old farming routines. As if the past were replaying itself for anyone willing to witness it. The barns at Blackwood Farm are particularly active with spectral activity. Visitors describe large wooden structures that seem to move subtly on their foundations, producing creaks and groans that have no apparent source. Doors swing open and shut without wind, and rusted tools are sometimes seen shifting or falling as if handled by invisible hands. Shadowy forms are often glimpsed among the rafters and lofts, vanishing when approached, while cold drafts and a sudden drop in temperature are common experiences for those inside. Some witnesses have even reported hearing muffled voices, whispers, or the faint echo of footsteps along the barn floors, creating the impression that the structures themselves are alive with residual energy from the farm's tragic past. Phantom animals are another recurring aspect of Blackwood Farm's hauntings. Visitors have reported seeing spectral horses and livestock wandering the fields or grazing near the barns, only to vanish when approached. The sound of hooves or the lowing of cattle sometimes carries across the property, even when no living animals are present. One witness described standing near a pasture at night when the outline of a horse appeared in the moonlight, its form partially translucent and glowing faintly before disappearing into the darkness. These encounters with phantom animals contribute to the overall sense that Blackwood Farm is a place where the past refuses to remain buried, replaying fragments of life as it once was. Inside the farmhouse, phenomena are equally unsettling. Visitors describe sudden cold spots in hallways or rooms, shadowy shapes standing silently in doorways, and whispers echoing through empty spaces. Apparitions have been seen peering from windows or walking the corridors, vanishing when observed directly. Some guests have reported feeling unseen hands brush against them or the sense of being followed by a presence that is unseen yet tangible. The combination of visual, auditory, and sensory experiences makes the farmhouse feel more like a living record of history than an abandoned structure, preserving the energy and memories of those who once inhabited it. The landscape surrounding Blackwood Farm enhances its haunting atmosphere. Rolling hills, dense tree lines, and overgrown pathways provide natural hiding places for shadows and allow sounds to travel in unexpected ways. Fog often blankets the fields in the early morning or late evening, making shadowy figures appear closer than they truly are. Visitors frequently report that the property seems to respond to their presence. Barns creak, shadowy forms shift, and phantom animals appear or vanish with the slightest attention, creating the sense that the farm itself is aware of those who wander its grounds. The haunting of Blackwood Farm is closely tied to its history. Each shadowy figure, each moving barn door, and each phantom animal serves as a reminder of the lives and tragedies that unfolded on the property in the 19th century. The farm acts as a vessel for memory, allowing echoes of the past to manifest for anyone who steps onto its fields, enters its barns, or walks through its farmhouse. Every encounter a fleeting silhouette, a sudden cold gust, the soft echo of hooves or footsteps testifies to the enduring presence of those who lived and worked on the land, and to the energy left behind by untimely deaths or forgotten labor. Visitors to Blackwood Farm often describe their experiences as unforgettable. Shadowy figures move silently through fields, barns shift with no apparent cause, and phantom animals roam pastures under the moonlight. Cold drafts sweep through rooms and hallways. Footsteps echo where no one stands, and whispers drift across the property. Blackwood Farm is more than an abandoned homestead. It is a place where history, memory, and the unexplained converge. The land itself seems alive with the echoes of its past, ensuring that the haunting continues to captivate, unsettle, and intrigue all who explore the overgrown fields, weathered barns, and mist-shrouded landscapes of this Oregon farm. Silver Oak Farm, nestled in the rolling hills of Northern California, is a property that seems to radiate both beauty and unease. Famous for its sprawling vineyards and rustic charm, the farm is also steeped in a history that locals say has left its mark in the form of lingering spirits. Visitors often report ghostly workers moving silently among the rows of grapevines, barn doors swinging open, and shut without explanation, and the echo of footsteps near the farmhouse when no one is present. Despite its picturesque appearance during the day, Silver Oak Farm becomes a place of subtle but persistent hauntings as dusk falls and shadows lengthen across the land. During daylight, the farm exudes a peaceful charm. Rows upon rows of grapevines stretch across the hills, their leaves rustling softly in the California breeze. The farmhouse stands proudly at the edge of the property, weathered but well maintained. While barns and outbuildings show signs of age, they were darkened and warped by decades of sun and rain. Rusted tools and old farming equipment lie scattered about, silent witnesses to a lifetime of labor. Visitors often note that even in broad daylight, the property carries an unusual stillness, as though the land itself is aware of the past that lingers there. Shadows seem to stretch a little longer than natural, and the slightest sound of rustling leaves or creaking boards can set the nerves on edge. The vineyards are central to the farm's haunting reputation. Ghostly figures are often seen moving between the rows of grapevines, particularly in the late afternoon or early evening. Witnesses describe these figures as human-shaped but somewhat translucent, dressed in the attire of vineyard workers from decades past. One visitor recounted walking along a narrow path between the vines at sunset when he saw a figure stooped over, tending to grapes that no longer existed. As he approached, the apparition disappeared into the fading light, leaving only the quiet whisper of wind through the leaves. Others have reported seeing multiple figures walking in a slow, deliberate rhythm, as if repeating the routines of labor long since ended. Their movements are silent, yet somehow purposeful, giving the sense that the vineyard is never truly empty. The barns at Silver Oak Farm are another focal point for the paranormal. Doors swing open and shut, without any wind or human intervention, and old wooden beams creak under invisible weight. Visitors have seen shadowy figures moving among the rafters or standing silently near haylofts, vanishing when approached. Cold spots often appear suddenly, particularly near corners or in the center of empty rooms. Some witnesses report hearing the distant clatter of tools, as though someone is still maintaining the equipment, and soft murmurs or whispers carry through the air, though no one is present. The barns, with their towering wooden structures and hollow interiors, seem to amplify these phenomena, creating a palpable sense of being observed. Phantom footsteps are another frequently reported experience, especially near the farmhouse. Visitors recount hearing steady, rhythmic footfalls on wooden floors or along dirt paths, even when they are the only person on the property. Some describe the sound of boots crunching gravel outside, while others hear soft steps echoing in hallways and rooms. These sounds often appear without warning and vanish just as suddenly, leaving behind an eerie silence. On several occasions, visitors have claimed that the footsteps follow them briefly, then retreat when they turn to confront the source. This phenomenon reinforces the sense that Silver Oak Farm is a place where the past continues to manifest in the present. The farmhouse itself carries a particularly strong sense of presence. Visitors report sudden drops in temperature, shadowy forms appearing near windows or doorways, and whispers that seem to originate from unseen sources. One guest described entering the main living room to find a figure standing near the fireplace, only to have it vanish when approached. Others have felt gentle brushes against their arms or shoulders, or sensed a presence lingering in empty rooms. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile experiences gives the farmhouse an almost tangible connection to the lives and memories of those who once lived and worked there. The surrounding landscape enhances the haunting atmosphere. Rolling hills and dense tree lines create natural hiding places for shadows, while the wind carries sounds unpredictably across the vineyards and fields. Fog frequently drifts in from the valleys during early morning or evening hours, shrouding the property in mist and making ghostly figures appear closer than they are. Visitors often describe the impression that the land itself is aware of their presence, responding with flickering lights in the barns, shifting shadows in the vineyards, and phantom footsteps along the pathways. The hauntings of Silver Oak Farm are inseparable from its history. Each shadowy worker, each moving barn door, and each phantom footstep is a reminder of the lives that shaped the property. The farm acts as a vessel for memory, preserving fragments of its past for anyone willing to witness them. Every encounter a fleeting silhouette in the vineyards, a whisper in an empty room. The soft echo of boots on the floorboards testifies to the enduring presence of those who once toiled on this land. Visitors to Silver Oak Farm often describe their experiences as unforgettable. Ghostly workers move silently among the grapevines. Barn doors swing open without cause, and footsteps echo near the farmhouse when no one is present. Cold drafts sweep through the barns and rooms. Shadows shift unexpectedly, and whispers drift across the property. Silver Oak Farm is more than a working farm. It is a place where history, memory, and the unexplained converge. The land itself seems alive with echoes of the past, ensuring that the haunting continues to captivate, unsettle, and intrigue all who wander among its vineyards, barns, and fog-draped hills of Northern California. Hidden Pines Farm, nestled in the rolling hills of Vermont, is a property that carries the quiet beauty of rural New England. Yet beneath its tranquil surface lies a history shadowed by mystery and inexplicable phenomena. Once a bustling farm with expansive cornfields, livestock, and dense woods lining the property, Hidden Pines Farm now sits largely abandoned, its fields overgrown and its barns weathered by decades of wind and rain. Locals speak of ghostly apparitions moving silently among the corn, phantom laughter echoing through the mist, and shadowy figures appearing in the fog-laden fields, creating an atmosphere that is both eerie and mesmerizing for those who dare to explore its grounds. During daylight hours, the farm appears serene. Tall stalks of corn sway in the breeze. The farmhouse and barns stand as silent sentinels, and the surrounding pine woods rustle softly with the movement of wind and wildlife. Yet even in the daylight, visitors often report an uncanny stillness that seems to set Hidden Pines apart from the surrounding countryside. Shadows appear elongated and unnatural. The creak of a branch or the distant clatter of an old tool can startle unexpectedly, and many describe a sensation of being watched by unseen eyes. The farm, while beautiful, exudes a subtle unease, hinting at the lingering presence of those who once labored on its fields. The cornfields are central to the farm's haunting reputation. Witnesses have reported shadowy figures gliding between the tall stalks, especially in the early morning mist or the fading light of dusk. These figures are often described as human-shaped, vaguely translucent, and dressed in old-fashioned work clothes, suggesting they may be the remnants of past farmers or laborers. One visitor recalled walking along a narrow path when he spotted a dark shape hunched over amid the corn, moving methodically as if tending crops that no longer exist. When he drew closer, the figure dissipated into the fog, leaving only the faint rustle of stalks and the impression that the fields themselves were alive with unseen activity. Others have reported seeing multiple figures moving in silent procession, echoing the routines of harvesters long gone, their presence a spectral reminder of the farm's past. Phantom laughter is another frequent occurrence at Hidden Pines Farm. Locals and visitors alike describe hearing faint, joyful voices drifting through the fields or near the barns, though no children or animals are present. This laughter is often fleeting, appearing unexpectedly and vanishing as quickly as it came, sometimes accompanied by sudden cold spots or the sensation of a presence nearby. On several occasions, visitors have reported hearing laughter that seems to follow them, moving from one field to another, only to stop abruptly when approached. The combination of sound, mist, and the shifting shadows of cornstalks creates an atmosphere that is simultaneously haunting and hypnotic. The barns and outbuildings of Hidden Pines Farm are hotspots for paranormal activity. Doors swing open or slam shut with no discernible cause. Floorboards creak as if bearing invisible weight, and tools or equipment sometimes shift as though handled by unseen hands. Shadowy forms are frequently glimpsed in lofts or along the edges of the barns, disappearing when approached. Cold drafts appear suddenly, often near corners or doorways, and the faint smell of hay or earth can intensify inexplicably. Witnesses have also reported hearing soft murmurs, whispered names, or the distant clatter of old farming implements, heightening the sense that the farm is more than a mere property. is a repository of memories and energy that refuses to remain silent. The farmhouse itself carries its own set of unsettling phenomena. Visitors have described sudden drops in temperature in rooms that are otherwise calm, shadowy figures appearing briefly in windows or hallways, and whispers that seem to come from empty spaces. Some have felt unseen hands brush past them or sensed a presence lingering in corners, while others report objects moving slightly without explanation. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile experiences makes the farmhouse feel like a living testament to the lives and labors of those who once inhabited it. Fog and weather play a significant role in the farm's haunting atmosphere. Early morning mist and evening fog often settle across the fields, shrouding the corn and creating the illusion of figures moving just beyond sight. Visitors often note that the farm seems to respond to their presence, with barns creaking, shadows shifting, or laughter and whispers intensifying when one stops to observe. The history of Hidden Pines Farm is inseparable from its hauntings. Each shadowy figure, each echo of laughter, and each moving object is a manifestation of the lives and experiences of those who once worked and lived there. The property seems to preserve fragments of its past, replaying scenes of labor, joy, and even sorrow for those willing to witness them. Every encounter, fleeting silhouette in the corn, a soft laugh drifting through the mist, the sudden movement of a barn door, serves as a reminder that the farm is alive with memory. A place where the boundary between past and present feels fluid. Visitors to Hidden Pines Farm often describe their experiences as unforgettable. Shadowy figures move silently among the cornfields. Phantom laughter echoes through the fog, and barn doors swing without cause. Cold drafts sweep through rooms, footsteps resonate where no one stands, and whispers drift across the property. Hidden Pines Farm is more than a rural homestead. It is a place where history, memory, and the unexplained converge. The land itself seems alive with echoes of the past, ensuring that the haunting continues to intrigue, unsettle, and captivate all who explore the mist-shrouded fields, weathered barns, and shadowed corners of this Vermont farm. Red Maple Farm, located in the quiet countryside of New Jersey, is a property that seems idyllic by day, with sprawling pastures, weathered barns, and rows of maple trees that glow red in the autumn sun. Yet beneath its picturesque appearance lies a history shrouded in mystery. And visitors often report experiences that suggest the farm is far from empty. Ghostly animals appear in the pastures, shadowy figures move silently along fences, and unexplained sounds echo through the barns, creating an atmosphere of quiet unease that lingers long after one leaves the property. The farm stretches across rolling fields, with pastures bordered by split-rail fences and dotted with crumbling outbuildings. The farmhouse, though still standing, shows signs of age, with peeling paint, sagging porches, and shuttered windows. At first glance, Red Maple Farm seems abandoned yet peaceful, a relic of a simpler time. But locals and visitors alike describe an unusual stillness in the air, a feeling that the land itself is aware of those who walk upon it. Shadows appear to move in the corners of vision, and even the faintest creak of a barn floorboard can set nerves on edge. Among the most commonly reported phenomena are the ghostly animals. Witnesses recount seeing spectral horses grazing in the pastures, their forms faintly luminous in the moonlight, or cattle wandering silently near fences before vanishing when approached. Dogs and cats, sometimes glimpsed darting along overgrown paths, appear and disappear without a trace, leaving only the sound of paws on dirt or the faint echo of a whine or meow. One visitor recalled watching what appeared to be a horse standing in a field at dusk. As he walked closer, the creature's body seemed to shimmer and fade, leaving the grass swaying in the wind as if nothing had been there at all. These phantom animals contribute to a sense that Red Maple Farm is a place where the boundary between the living and the spectral is blurred. Shadowy figures are another frequent occurrence, often seen moving along the fences or among the trees. Witnesses describe human-shaped silhouettes that appear to be carrying out tasks long forgotten, such as mending fences, tending livestock, or walking the fields in purposeful strides. These figures are almost always observed peripherally, moving along the edges of vision or vanishing when confronted directly. One visitor described following a path near the barn only to notice a dark figure pacing alongside the fence line. As he stepped closer, the figure dissipated into the twilight, leaving an eerie silence that seemed to stretch across the fields. Others report multiple figures appearing and disappearing in sequence, as though replaying scenes of farm life from decades past. The barns at Red Maple Farm are particularly active with paranormal phenomena. Doors swing open and closed without wind, tools shift as if handled by invisible hands, and wooden beams creak under no apparent weight. Visitors have heard footsteps echoing through the empty lofts, distant whispers, or even muffled laughter, all in spaces where no one is present. Some report feeling sudden chills, especially in corners or near old stalls, while others have seen shadowy forms appear and disappear in the dim light filtering through dusty windows. The barns, with their high ceilings and hollow interiors, seem to amplify every sound and shadow, creating an atmosphere that is both unsettling and impossible to ignore. Phantom sounds are an ever-present feature of the farm's haunting. Footsteps crunch along gravel paths, doors slam in empty buildings, and the low murmur of voices drifts through the fields. Many visitors describe hearing the clatter of hooves or the faint jingling of harnesses, only to find no animals or people nearby. These sounds often seem to follow explorers as they move from one area to another, stopping abruptly when they attempt to locate the source. The unpredictability of the noises adds to the sense that Red Maple Farm is not merely haunted by visual apparitions, but by the echoes of life that once filled the property. The farmhouse itself carries its own spectral presence. Cold drafts sweep through hallways, shadowy forms are glimpsed in doorways or near windows, and whispers seem to emerge from empty rooms. Visitors have reported objects moving slightly on their own, the soft brush of unseen hands, or the impression of a presence lingering nearby. Some claim to see figures pacing through the rooms at night or watching silently from corners before vanishing. The farmhouse, like the fields and barns, feels alive with memory, preserving fragments of the lives and labors of those who once inhabited it. Fog, twilight, and the dense canopy of maple trees enhance the farm's haunting atmosphere. Mist often settles in the fields in the early morning or late evening, obscuring paths and making shadowy figures appear closer than they truly are. Leaves rustle without wind, and shadows lengthen unnaturally as the sun dips behind the hills. Visitors often report that the property seems to respond to their presence. Doors creak, shadows shift, and phantom footsteps or animal sounds appear when attention is focused elsewhere. The environment itself becomes a conduit for the lingering energy of the past. The history of Red Maple Farm is inseparable from its haunting. Each ghostly animal, shadowy figure, and unexplained sound reflects the lives, labors, and memories of those who once called the farm home. The property acts as a vessel for memory, replaying fragments of its past for anyone willing to witness them. Every encounter, fleeting silhouette along a fence, a soft clatter of hooves, the sudden swing of a barn door serves as a reminder that Red Maple Farm is more than a scenic property. It is a place where history and the unexplained converge. Visitors to Red Maple Farm often describe their experiences as unforgettable. Ghostly animals graze silently, shadowy figures move along fences, and barns creak and echo with unexplainable sounds. Cold drafts sweep across empty hallways. Footsteps resonate in fields with no living creatures, and whispers drift through the air. Red Maple Farm is a living archive of its own history, a place where memory, tragedy, and the unexplained remain intertwined. For those who wander its pastures, step inside its barns, or gaze across the fog-covered fields, the farm leaves an impression that is both haunting and impossible to forget. Stonebridge Farm, tucked away in the quiet hills of Massachusetts, is a place where time seems to linger, and the past refuses to let go. Its rolling fields, old silos, and weathered barns paint a picture of pastoral tranquility. Yet beneath the farm's serene appearance lies a history that many locals believe is haunted. Visitors often report seeing phantom figures near the old silos, hearing barns creak and groan with no wind or human presence, and spotting shadowy shapes moving silently across the fields after dark. These unsettling experiences have made Stonebridge Farm a focal point for those drawn to the unexplained, where the beauty of rural life is intertwined with lingering echoes of the past. During the day, the farm exudes a sense of calm. Fields stretch for acres, bordered by stone walls and dotted with wildflowers and tall grasses. The silos rise like silent sentinels over the property, their metal surfaces dull with age, while the barns show the scars of decades of use, wood darkened by sun and rain. The farmhouse, though still maintained, bears the marks of time-faded shutters, sagging porch boards, and the occasional creak of a weathered floor. Even in daylight, visitors often feel a subtle unease, as if the farm itself is watching. Shadows seem to linger longer than natural, and the rustle of leaves or the soft groan of old wood can make the hairs on one's neck stand on end. The old silos are a particular source of spectral sightings. Visitors have reported seeing figures standing near them, often just at the edge of vision. These figures are described as human-shaped but slightly translucent, appearing in clothing reminiscent of farmhands from decades past. One guest recounted walking toward the silos at dusk, noticing a dark figure leaning against one of the rusted structures. As he approached, the figure slowly vanished into the twilight, leaving only the quiet hum of the evening breeze. Others have described multiple figures moving in a slow, deliberate rhythm around the silos, as if performing tasks that were once essential to the farm, yet long forgotten. The presence of these apparitions lends the property an eerie sense of life beyond the living. The barns on Stonebridge Farm are equally active in paranormal reports. Doors swing open and closed without cause, floorboards creak under invisible weight, and the wooden beams groan in ways that defy explanation. Shadowy forms are sometimes glimpsed in the lofts or along the edges of the structures, vanishing when approached. Many visitors describe sudden cold spots, particularly near corners or in the center of empty rooms, and the faint smell of hay or earth intensifies inexplicably. Echoes of whispered conversations, soft footsteps, and even the distant clatter of tools are frequently reported, giving the impression that the barns are still alive with the activities of past workers. The high ceilings and hollow interiors amplify every sound, creating an atmosphere that is impossible to ignore. Shadowy figures moving across the fields are another hallmark of Stonebridge Farm's haunted reputation. Witnesses often see human-shaped silhouettes gliding silently through the grass or between trees after sunset. These figures are rarely seen in full detail, appearing as dark, shifting forms that vanish if confronted. Others report seeing multiple figures moving in a coordinated manner, as though replaying the routines of farm life long past. The combination of visual and tactile sensations, such as sudden chills or the feeling of being followed, creates a lingering sense of unease that many describe as unforgettable. Sounds on the farm contribute significantly to its haunted atmosphere. Visitors frequently report hearing footsteps in fields where no one walks, doors creaking in barns with no wind, and distant murmurs that seem to come from empty spaces. Sometimes the noises appear to follow those exploring the property, only to vanish abruptly when attention is turned toward their source. The unpredictability of these sounds, whether footsteps, whispers, or the soft clatter of unseen tools, reinforces the impression that Stonebridge Farm is a place where the past is never truly gone. The farmhouse itself is not exempt from paranormal activity. Sudden temperature drops, unexplained shadows near windows and doorways, and whispers emanating from empty rooms are common experiences for visitors. Some have felt unseen hands brush past their arms, or sensed a presence lingering silently in corners. Objects have been reported to shift slightly on their own, while lights flicker inexplicably in the late evening. The farmhouse, like the barns and silos, seems to hold the echoes of past inhabitants, preserving fragments of their lives and labors in ways that are tangible to the living. Environmental factors enhance the haunting of Stonebridge Farm. Fog often rolls in from the hills in the early morning or at dusk, shrouding the fields and silos in mist and making shadowy figures appear closer than they truly are. Visitors often describe the impression that the farm itself reacts to their presence. Doors swing, shadows move, and noises intensify when attention is focused elsewhere. The history of Stonebridge Farm is inseparable from its hauntings. Every shadowy figure, every creaking door, and every unexplained sound is a fragment of the lives, labors, and memories that once shaped the property. The land itself seems to act as a vessel for memory, replaying scenes of daily life, work, and perhaps even tragedy for those willing to witness them. Each encounter a fleeting silhouette near a silo, a shadow moving across a field, the groan of a barn beam serves as a reminder that Stonebridge Farm is more than a collection of buildings and fields. It is a living archive of the past, a place where history, memory, and the unexplained converge. Visitors to Stonebridge Farm consistently describe their experiences as unforgettable. Phantom figures linger near silos, barns groan with no apparent cause, and shadows move across the fields in ways that defy explanation. Cold drafts sweep through the barns and farmhouse, footsteps echo in empty spaces, and whispers drift through the night air. Stonebridge Farm is a property where the past refuses to remain buried, a place where memory, presence, and the unexplained coexist, leaving a lasting impression on all who explore its misty fields, weathered barns, and shadowed corners. Ashwood Farm, nestled in the lush, rolling hills of Washington State, is a property that seems to exist in a world of its own, where the beauty of rural life is interwoven with whispers of tragedy and lingering spirits. Once a thriving farm known for its orchards, pastures, and livestock, it now carries a reputation for being haunted, drawing curiosity seekers and paranormal enthusiasts from near and far. Locals tell stories of shadowy figures tending the fields at night, barn doors swinging open without wind, and phantom animals roaming freely across pastures, creating an atmosphere both unsettling and captivating. The farm's reputation as a place where the past never truly sleeps makes every visit an experience that blurs the line between reality and the unseen. By day, Ashwood Farm seems idyllic. Green pastures stretch 4 acres, dotted with old oak and fir trees, their leaves rustling gently in the breeze. The farmhouse stands as a weathered but proud centerpiece, flanked by barns and silos that have witnessed generations of labor and life. At first glance, the farm appears peaceful, a testament to the hard work of those who once tended it. Yet even in daylight, visitors often remark on the eerie stillness that pervades the property. Shadows seem to linger a little longer than they should, and the faint creaking of wooden structures echoes across the fields in ways that cannot be fully explained. Many report an inexplicable sensation of being watched, as though unseen eyes follow their every step. The fields at Ashwood Farm are central to its haunting reputation. Locals have reported seeing shadowy figures moving among the rows of crops or along fence lines after dusk. One visitor recalled walking near the orchard at twilight when he noticed a dark figure bent over, tending to the ground as if planting seeds or inspecting crops. As he approached, the figure dissolved into the mist, leaving only the whisper of wind through the leaves. Others have witnessed multiple figures moving in tandem, performing repetitive tasks in a silent, spectral echo of daily farm life. The presence of these phantoms gives the sense that the farm continues its work even long after its caretakers have gone. Barns on the property are equally active with paranormal activity. Doors creak and swing open with no wind. Floorboards groan under invisible weight, and shadows flit across lofts or along walls. Visitors have reported hearing footsteps echoing through the empty spaces, distant murmurs, or the faint clatter of tools being handled by unseen hands. Sudden drops in temperature are common, especially near corners or in the center of the barns, where the air feels heavy and charged with unseen energy. Some have even smelled the faint scent of hay, livestock, or earth where nothing is present. These phenomena make the barns feel alive, as if the past labor of the farm is preserved in the very wood and stone. Replaying for anyone willing to witness it, phantom animals add another layer of mystery to Ashwood Farm. Witnesses frequently report seeing spectral horses grazing in pastures, cattle wandering silently, or dogs and cats moving along paths with no physical presence. These apparitions appear and vanish unpredictably, often accompanied by sounds, hoofbeats, distant barking, or the rustling of unseen creatures in the underbrush. One visitor described a black horse standing at the edge of a field at dusk, its form sharp against the fading light. As he moved closer, the horse seemed to shimmer and fade, leaving only the swaying grass behind. Such sightings reinforce the idea that the farm is inhabited not just by echoes of human labor, but by the spirits of the animals that once roamed its pastures. Sounds play a significant role in Ashwood Farm's haunting atmosphere. Footsteps crunch along gravel paths where no one walks, barn doors creak, and faint murmurs drift across open fields. Visitors often report that noises seem to follow them, shifting in distance and direction as though responding to movement. The clatter of tools, the soft neigh of a phantom horse, or the rustle of leaves in areas where no one is present create an environment where the ordinary rules of sound and space feel suspended. The unpredictability of these sounds contributes to the sense that Ashwood Farm is alive with memories that refuse to rest. The farmhouse itself is no stranger to the unexplained. Cold drafts sweep through hallways, shadows appear briefly in windows or along walls, and whispers seem to come from empty rooms. Objects occasionally shift slightly without explanation, and the faint sensation of being brushed by unseen hands is a common report. Some visitors claim to see figures pacing silently, watching from corners, or standing near doorways, before vanishing. The farmhouse, like the barns and fields, acts as a repository of memory, preserving fragments of the lives and labors of those who once inhabited it. Weather and natural elements enhance the farm's ghostly reputation. Mist often rolls across the pastures in early morning or twilight, obscuring familiar paths and making shadowy figures appear closer than they are. Trees cast long, shifting shadows that seem to move independently, and the wind carries sounds unpredictably, amplifying phantom footsteps, whispers, or the soft clatter of tools. Visitors often feel that the farm itself reacts to their presence, with doors creaking, shadows shifting, or noises intensifying in response. The environment works in concert with the residual energy of the past, creating an experience that is immersive and unsettling. Ashwood Farm's history is inseparable from its hauntings. Worker accidents, long-forgotten labor, and the lives of those who once tended the land seem to leave echoes that continue to linger. Every shadowy figure, every phantom animal, and every unexplained sound serves as a reminder that the farm is more than its buildings and fields. It is a living archive, a place where memory, labor, and the unexplained converge. Visitors leave Ashwood Farm with lasting impressions. Shadowy figures move silently across the fields, barn doors swing with no wind, and phantom animals roam pastures unseen. Cold drafts sweep through empty rooms, footsteps echo across the land, and whispers drift through the night air. Ashwood Farm is a place where the past never truly fades, where the presence of those who came before lingers in every corner, field, and structure, leaving an indelible mark on all who venture into its haunted expanses. Windfall Farm, perched among the rolling plains and forested edges of Colorado, carries an air of quiet desolation that has long drawn the curious and the brave. Once a thriving homestead known for its cattle, crops, and sprawling barns, the farm has been largely abandoned for decades. Yet those who venture onto its grounds speak of experiences that defy explanation. Visitors frequently report apparitions in the old barns, phantom footsteps echoing across open fields, and shadowy figures vanishing among the trees that border the property. These lingering presences suggest that Windfall Farm is more than an abandoned homestead. It is a place where the past refuses to rest, replaying itself for anyone willing to witness. During the daylight hours, Windfall Farm appears deceptively tranquil. The barns, though weathered and sagging with age, stand as imposing structures amid the tall grasses and scattered wildflowers. Silos rise like silent sentinels over the property, their rusting metal catching the sun in brief glimmers. The farmhouse, long empty, shows signs of life long, gone shutters hanging unevenly, paint faded to gray, and porches groaning under the weight of decades. Yet even amid this seemingly peaceful landscape, there is an undeniable tension in the air. Shadows cling to corners longer than they should, and the wind seems to carry faint, indistinct sounds across the fields. Many visitors report a sensation of being watched, as if unseen eyes follow their every move across the farm's uneven terrain. The barns are perhaps the most active sites for paranormal activity on the property. Inside, visitors often witness fleeting apparitions, human-shaped figures moving silently among the stalls and lofts, performing tasks that were once routine on the farm. Doors creak open and shut without wind, and floorboards groan under invisible weight. Cold spots settle in corners and along hallways, and the faint smell of hay or livestock seems to linger where nothing remains. Some have reported seeing a shadowy figure at the top of the loft, holding a tool as though completing a chore long past, only to vanish the instant it is observed directly. Others recount hearing the faint clatter of buckets or the rhythmic sound of boots walking across worn wooden floors, echoing through the empty structure in a way that is impossible to ignore. The fields of Windfall Farm are equally alive with unexplained phenomena. Witnesses describe the sound of footsteps crunching across dry grass where no one walks, the rustle of movement just beyond sight, and shadows flitting along the edges of forests or stone walls. Some report seeing dark, human-shaped figures moving across the fields, sometimes performing tasks like checking fences, tending to crops, or walking with a purpose that seems eerily deliberate. These figures often vanish without warning, leaving only the wind and the swaying grass as evidence of their presence. On several occasions, visitors have felt sudden chills as they crossed open spaces, a sensation often accompanied by the subtle impression of being followed, though no one is there. The bordering trees add another dimension to Windfall Farm's haunting. Shadowy figures are often spotted disappearing into dense groves or standing silently at the tree line. The silhouettes are typically vague, almost blending into the darkness of the trunks and branches, yet they are unmistakably human-shaped. Observers have recounted seeing figures standing among the trees at twilight, motionless, only to find them gone moments later. The sounds of snapping twigs, faint footsteps, or whispers drifting on the wind often accompany these sightings, heightening the sense that the forested areas surrounding the farm are as much a part of the haunting as the open fields or crumbling barns. Sounds play a critical role in the eerie atmosphere of Windfall Farm. Visitors frequently report hearing doors slam or creak without cause, tools clattering inside barns, and faint murmurs that seem to float across the open fields. Footsteps echo unpredictably, sometimes appearing to follow those exploring the property and vanishing when attention is turned directly toward them. Occasionally, voices are heard, repeating names or indistinct phrases, carried in whispers that are nearly impossible to locate. The combination of visual and auditory phenomena creates an environment where the ordinary rules of sound and space seem suspended, making even the broad, open landscapes feel confined and charged with unseen presence. The farmhouse, though largely deserted, is not exempt from paranormal activity. Cold drafts sweep through empty rooms, shadows appear briefly along doorways or windows, and objects occasionally shift with no visible cause. Many visitors report a persistent feeling of being watched, or the subtle impression that something unseen is moving nearby. Some have claimed to see figures pacing silently through hallways or standing by corners before vanishing entirely. Like the barns and fields, the farmhouse serves as a repository of memory, preserving fragments of past life and labor that replay themselves for those willing to perceive them. Environmental factors further enhance the haunting of Windfall Farm. Early morning fog often blankets the fields, creating an ethereal backdrop for shadowy apparitions and making familiar features appear otherworldly. The shifting light and weather create illusions that blur the line between reality and perception, allowing shadowy figures and phantom movements to appear and vanish in ways that defy explanation. Windfall Farm's history is inseparable from its hauntings. Worker accidents, decades of labor, and the lives of those who inhabited the property leave echoes that seem to persist across time. Every shadowy figure glimpsed near a barn, every phantom animal seen grazing in the fields, and every unexplained sound becomes a fragment of the farm's enduring presence. Visitors often remark that the land itself seems alive with memory, replaying moments of life, labor, and perhaps even tragedy for anyone who treads its grounds. Those who explore Windfall Farm consistently leave with a lasting impression. Apparitions drift through barns, shadowy figures move across fields, and unseen forces interact with the property in subtle but unmistakable ways. Cold drafts sweep across open spaces, phantom footsteps echo across the land, and whispers float through the night air. Windfall Farm is more than an abandoned homestead. It is a place where the past endures, where memory and presence coexist with the living, and where the spirits of those who once worked and lived on the land continue to roam its fields, barns, and forested edges. Maple Hollow Farm, nestled in the quiet hills of Connecticut, carries a reputation that belies its serene appearance. What seems to be a picturesque farmstead during the day transforms at night into a place of inexplicable phenomena, drawing the attention of both thrill-seekers and paranormal enthusiasts. Visitors frequently report ghostly figures of children playing among the fields, shadowy shapes lingering near the silos, and lights that flicker mysteriously across the open pastures. These accounts suggest that Maple Hollow Farm is a place where the past persists, where the echoes of those who once lived and worked on the property continue to make themselves known. During daylight hours, the farm appears ordinary. Rolling fields stretch out around a weathered farmhouse. Barns stand quietly against the horizon, and silos rise like sentinels, guarding the property. The gentle swaying of trees and the distant sound of wildlife create an atmosphere of peaceful rural life. Yet for those attuned to the farm's unusual reputation, subtle oddities are noticeable even in the sunlit hours. Shadows seem to linger a moment longer than natural, and the soft creaking of barns can sometimes be heard even without wind. Many visitors have described a quiet sense of unease, an almost imperceptible pressure that seems to suggest the land itself remembers the lives that once animated it. The fields of Maple Hollow Farm are central to its haunting. Witnesses have reported seeing the ghostly figures of children playing among the rows of crops and grassy meadows, often appearing during twilight or in the early morning fog. These figures are usually small and indistinct, yet their playful movements, the sound of laughter, or the echo of running feet leave a lasting impression on those who witness them. One visitor recounted watching what appeared to be two children chasing each other near the edge of a cornfield. As he approached, the figures dissipated like mist, leaving only disturbed grass and an inexplicable chill in the air. These sightings give the impression that the children are replaying long-forgotten moments, frozen in time yet interacting with the living world in fleeting glimpses. The barns and silos on the property are often the stage for the more mysterious activity. Shadowy shapes are frequently observed moving near these structures, sometimes appearing as human forms, performing tasks from decades past. Doors swing open on their own, floorboards creak with invisible weight, and faint sounds of tools or farm equipment echo inside empty buildings. Some visitors have described seeing figures climbing the ladders of silos or standing at the entrances of barns, only to vanish when approached. Cold spots and sudden temperature drops are common, often accompanied by the faint scent of hay, livestock, or damp earth, even when no one is present. These phenomena create a sense that the barns and silos are living remnants of the farm's history, replaying the labor and presence of those who once inhabited them. Lights across the fields add another layer of the uncanny. Witnesses have seen flickering orbs moving across the pastures, often appearing near the edges of wooded areas or between rows of crops. These lights are typically small and dim, yet they seem to follow the movements of observers, vanishing and reappearing unpredictably. Some describe the lights as resembling lanterns held by invisible hands, while others report that the lights move as though guided by unseen entities. Occasionally, these flickering illuminations are accompanied by soft whispers, the rustling of grass, or distant, indistinct laughter that seem to echo from nowhere. reinforcing the farm's otherworldly atmosphere. Sounds play a crucial role in the haunting of Maple Hollow Farm. Visitors often hear phantom footsteps across the fields or long gravel paths, the soft thump of play or running where no one is present. Laughter or faint chatter drifts across open spaces, impossible to locate or trace. Barn doors slam or creak inexplicably, and the sound of tools being handled echoes through empty structures. These auditory phenomena often heighten the tension of the experience, creating an environment where even the open, pastoral landscape feels charged with unseen presence. The farmhouse itself is no stranger to unusual activity. Shadows flit along hallways or appear briefly in windows, while cold drafts sweep through rooms even when doors and windows are closed. Some visitors report objects shifting slightly without explanation, the faint impression of being brushed by unseen hands, or the sensation of eyes watching from the corners. Apparitions have occasionally been reported pacing silently along hallways or standing near doorways before disappearing. The farmhouse, like the barns and fields, seems to act as a vessel for memory, preserving the actions and energy of those who lived there, allowing them to echo across time for anyone willing to notice. Morning mist often blankets the fields, creating an ethereal stage for ghostly figures. At dusk, long shadows stretch across the land, making familiar structures appear uncanny. The wind carries sounds unpredictably, allowing whispers, footsteps, and distant laughter to travel farther than natural. The combination of fading light, fog, and natural acoustics seems to enhance the spectral appearances, blurring the line between what is real and what is imagined. The history of Maple Hollow Farm is inseparable from the haunting itself. Generations of families lived and worked here, and stories of lost children, tragic accidents, and hard labor seem to resonate across the landscape. Every shadowy figure glimpsed near a silo, every ghostly child seen playing in the fields, and every flickering light moving unpredictably across the pastures serves as a reminder that the farm's past is never truly gone. The presence of these echoes gives the property a sense of life beyond its physical structures, a lingering connection to those who walked, worked, and played there before. Visitors leave Maple Hollow Farm with a lasting impression. Ghostly children continue to play in fields long after the sun sets. Shadowy figures linger near silos, and unexplained lights flicker across open land. Barn doors swing without wind, footsteps echo along empty paths, and whispers drift through the night air. Maple Hollow Farm is not merely an abandoned homestead. It is a place where memory, presence, and the unexplained coexist, a living reminder that some places never truly forget the people who once called them home. Silver Creek Farm, nestled in the rolling valleys of Idaho, appears to be a quiet, unassuming agricultural property at first glance. By day, the farm exudes the charm of rural life. Weathered barns standing against the horizon, silos towering over sprawling fields, and meadows dotted with grazing livestock. Yet those who venture to the farm after dusk tell a far different story. Shadowy figures are reported tending the fields in the dead of night. Barns creak and shift with no discernible cause, and phantom animals materialize and vanish as if the past refuses to remain buried. Silver Creek Farm has long carried a reputation as a place where the line between the living and the spectral blurs, drawing those intrigued by the unknown. Visitors during daylight hours often find the farm idyllic, with its lush fields stretching to the horizon and the quiet rhythm of rural life filling the air. Yet there is an undercurrent of tension, subtle but undeniable. Shadows seem unusually long, often stretching along the edges of barns or across the fields in ways that catch the corner of the eye. Occasionally, a faint sound of creaking wood or distant movement seems to carry across the property, even when no one is nearby. Those familiar with the farm's history say that this is a place where memory lingers, and the earth itself seems to echo with the lives of those who once worked it. The barns are often the center of paranormal reports. Witnesses describe the sound of doors swinging open and shut with no wind, floorboards groaning under invisible weight, and tools moving as if handled by unseen hands. shadowy human-shaped figures are often glimpsed among the stalls, carrying out tasks that appear oddly familiar, as though they are performing chores from a bygone era. One visitor recounted seeing a figure carrying a bucket across a loft, only for it to vanish into thin air before they could approach. Cold spots are common, often felt near corners or along hallways, and some describe an overwhelming sense of being watched while inside the barns, even when entirely alone. These phenomena give the structures a life of their own, as though the farm is replaying fragments of its history for anyone willing to perceive them. The fields surrounding the farm are equally charged with unexplained activity. Shadowy figures are frequently reported walking among the crops at night, sometimes appearing to be tending plants or checking fences. Phantom footsteps echo across open land, vanishing whenever attention is directly focused. Some visitors claim to have seen dark silhouettes moving swiftly between rows of crops, only to disappear as if absorbed into the soil or mist. At times, the figures seem to repeat familiar tasks, feeding animals, stacking hay, or adjusting fences. These moments create an unsettling sense of time slipping, where past and present overlap in eerie synchrony. Phantom animals are another recurring feature of Silver Creek Farm's haunting. Observers have reported seeing spectral horses grazing in empty pastures, cows appearing along fences before vanishing, and even dogs or cats darting across fields with no one behind them. These apparitions often appear at dusk or in early morning fog, their forms vague yet unmistakably animate. Sometimes their sudden disappearance leaves behind impressions in the ground or a faint rustle of disturbed grass, evidence that something unseen moved through the farm. These sightings create a chilling reminder that life on the farm continues in ways invisible to most. Sounds play a critical role in the farm's eerie atmosphere. Phantom footsteps crunch across gravel paths, barn doors slam without cause, and faint murmurs drift across the fields. Some visitors report the sound of tools clattering in empty barns, or the rhythmic thump of activity where no one is present. Whispered voices, sometimes calling names or repeating fragments of conversation, are reported throughout the property. These sounds often appear to follow visitors, giving the impression that unseen presences are aware of their movements, heightening both fear and fascination. The farmhouse itself is not immune to the hauntings. Cold drafts sweep through rooms, windows reveal shadows moving beyond, and objects occasionally shift without explanation. Visitors have reported brief glimpses of figures pacing silently through hallways or standing near corners before vanishing. The interior of the house mirrors the activity of the barns and fields, a sense that the past is actively present, replaying moments long gone. Some have described feeling unseen hands brush against their shoulders or the subtle sensation of eyes tracking them across rooms. The farmhouse serves as a repository for these lingering presences, a place where history and memory manifest tangibly. Environmental conditions on Silver Creek Farm amplify its haunting qualities. Morning fog often drifts across fields, creating an ethereal backdrop for shadowy figures and phantom animals. Twilight casts long shadows across barns and pastures, making familiar features appear uncanny and shifting the landscape into a realm of uncertainty. Gusts of wind carry unexplained sounds across the property, allowing whispers, footsteps, or distant laughter to travel farther than seems possible. The interplay of light, weather, and sound transforms the farm into a stage where the natural and supernatural intertwine seamlessly. The history of Silver Creek Farm is inseparable from its haunting. Decades of labor, lost animals, and the lives of those who inhabited the property leave traces that persist across time. Every shadowy figure glimpsed in the fields, every phantom animal observed, and every unexplained sound serves as a reminder that the past refuses to rest. The farm's presence is not merely physical. It is imbued with memory, echoing the daily lives, struggles, and tragedies of those who once walked its grounds. Visitors often leave Silver Creek Farm with a lingering sense of unease and wonder. Shadowy figures continue to appear in barns and fields. Phantom footsteps echo in open pastures, and unexplained lights flicker across the property. Barn doors move without wind, Spectral animals roam briefly before vanishing, and whispers drift along the breeze. Silver Creek Farm is far more than an abandoned farm. It is a place where the past persists in the present, where memory, presence, and mystery converge, creating an enduring connection between the living and the echoes of those who came before. Willow Bend Farm, tucked away in the quiet countryside of Minnesota, is a property that carries an unsettling reputation despite its pastoral appearance. By day, the farm seems idyllic. Rolling fields stretch under wide skies. Weathered barns stand silently at the edges of pastures, and wooden fences mark the boundaries of open land. Yet after dusk, the farm transforms into a place where the ordinary meets the unexplainable. Witnesses report apparitions walking along the old fences, ghostly livestock roaming freely in abandoned pastures, and unexplained voices echoing from empty barns. These experiences suggest that Willow Bend Farm is a site where the past lingers, where the energy of lives long gone continues to manifest in eerie ways. During daylight, Willow Bend Farm appears serene. The sun casts golden light over cornfields and meadows, while the gentle creaking of wooden structures blends with the calls of birds and the rustle of trees. Shadows seem unusually long and sometimes move in ways that feel unnatural. The air carries occasional faint whispers, almost imperceptible unless one is particularly attentive. Even in bright sunlight, the farm gives a sense that it holds memories that cannot be erased. A feeling that the land itself remembers those who once lived and worked there. The farm's fences are frequently the setting for unusual sightings. Witnesses describe shadowy human forms walking or leaning along the wooden rails, moving with a slow, deliberate pace that seems tied to tasks from decades past. At times, these figures appear to be performing farm chores, mending fences, carrying tools, or inspecting fields before vanishing when approached. The apparitions are often accompanied by cold spots, sudden drops in temperature that are particularly noticeable on still nights. Some visitors have noted that even when standing close, they cannot detect a human presence. Yet the sensation of being observed is undeniable. The fences, like sentinels, seem to mark the boundary between the living and the spectral, guiding glimpses of the farm's persistent past. Ghostly livestock also play a central role in Willow Bend Farm's haunting. These phantom animals often manifest at dusk or in the early morning fog, their forms ethereal but unmistakably animate. Some observers claim to have seen the animals interact with invisible handlers or move in patterns that suggest long-forgotten routines. Occasionally, the sounds of cloven hooves or the soft lowing of a cow accompany these apparitions, echoing across the fields and lending an uncanny vibrancy to the otherwise empty landscape. These spectral animals leave behind no trace, yet their presence is strongly felt, a reminder of life that continues beyond the bounds of the natural world. The barns at Willow Bend Farm are particularly active with unexplainable phenomena. Doors creak or slam without wind, floorboards groan under unseen weight, and tools appear to shift or move on their own. Visitors have reported hearing faint murmurs or voices, sometimes calling names or mimicking conversations from the past. The sounds seem to drift unpredictably, sometimes following a person through different sections of the barn or echoing in a way that defies natural acoustics. Shadowy shapes have been seen among the stalls or near old haylofts, figures that appear human but fade when approached. The barns, filled with echoes of labor and life long gone, act as a repository for the lingering energy of the farm, holding the past within their walls. The environment of Willow Bend Farm enhances its haunted qualities. Fog often rolls in from the surrounding hills, cloaking fields and structures in a thick, ethereal layer that obscures reality. Twilight casts long, stretching shadows across fences and meadows, making familiar structures appear unfamiliar and eerie. Even the wind plays a role, carrying whispers, distant clanks, or faint animal noises farther than seems possible, creating the impression of presences just beyond sight. Weather and light combine to create a stage where the farm's spectral activity can unfold, leaving visitors questioning the line between imagination and reality. Witnesses frequently describe a sense of being followed or observed while exploring the farm. Phantom footsteps echo along gravel paths or through fields. Doors swing without cause. An unseen hand seemed to brush against clothing or shoulders. Some visitors report glimpsing figures standing silently at the edge of a pasture or along a fence line, only to disappear when attention is focused. Others have experienced fleeting visual phenomena in peripheral vision movements or forms that vanish when directly looked at. These experiences contribute to the farm's atmosphere of persistent unease, making it clear that Willow Bend Farm holds more than just physical structures and open land. The history of Willow Bend Farm is inseparable from the paranormal activity reported there. Generations of farmers, laborers, and families lived on the land, experiencing both daily toil and tragic events. Many of the spectral manifestations, the shadowy figures along fences, ghostly livestock, and unexplained voices, appear to reflect these memories, replaying actions, routines, or events from the farm's long history. The property acts as a bridge between past and present, a space where echoes of former lives persist, reminding visitors that the farm's story is never fully complete. Those who leave Willow Bend Farm often carry with them vivid memories of what they encountered. Shadowy figures linger along fences, phantom livestock roam fields, and voices continue to echo from empty barns long after sunset. Doors move without wind, footsteps sound along deserted paths, and whispers drift through the night air. Willow Bend Farm is not simply an abandoned or quiet farm. It is a place where memory, presence, and mystery converge, a living testament to the lingering spirits of those who once called it home, ensuring that the past remains visible to anyone willing to notice. Oak Ridge Farm, nestled in the rolling hills of Tennessee, appears at first glance to be a serene slice of rural life. During the day, the fields stretch wide and golden under the sun. Silos stand tall against the sky, and barns show the quiet charm of weathered wood and sturdy beams. Yet beneath this peaceful exterior, the farm has long been known for its unsettling and inexplicable occurrences. Visitors recount shadowy figures glimpsed in silos, phantom footsteps echoing across empty fields, and barn doors that swing open and close without any visible cause. Oak Ridge Farm is a place where the past seems to linger, where unseen presences replay routines and movements long forgotten, and where the boundary between the living and the spectral becomes unsettlingly thin. By daylight, the farm seems ordinary. Cattle graze in the open pastures, cornfields sway gently in the breeze, and the occasional farmer goes about routine work. Yet, even in broad daylight, there are subtle signs that the land is more than it appears. Shadows sometimes move in ways that catch the corner of an observer's eye. Figures seem to appear briefly near the edges of barns or silos, and an unusual chill often accompanies certain spots, particularly near older structures. Longtime locals speak of a lingering energy on the farm, one that is palpable to anyone sensitive to the unusual. It is as if the land itself remembers every life that has passed across it, every footstep in the fields, every hand that guided the plow. The silos on Oak Ridge Farm are often the focal point of paranormal sightings. Witnesses describe seeing dark, humanoid figures moving within the round structures, their forms indistinct, yet unmistakably human. Some appear to be performing work long associated with farm life, such as stacking hay or inspecting grain, only to vanish when approached. On certain nights, visitors have reported hearing the faint rustle of movement inside the silos, or the scraping of tools, as if someone unseen is performing routine chores. Cold spots are frequent near these areas, sometimes so intense that they leave observers shivering despite otherwise warm evening air. The presence in the silos is often described as silent yet deliberate, a replay of long-forgotten tasks from the farm's history. Empty fields surrounding Oak Ridge Farm are equally active with unexplained activity. Phantom footsteps are commonly reported, echoing across meadows and dirt paths where no person is present. Shadowy figures have been seen walking between fence lines, appearing to inspect crops or tend livestock, only to disappear when noticed directly. Some visitors have even reported glimpsing faint silhouettes of animals, horses, cows, or chickens moving across pastures before vanishing as if absorbed into the mist. These occurrences often happen during twilight or an early morning fog, when the land takes on a surreal, otherworldly quality. The combination of silence, fog, and occasional cold spots enhances the sense that the farm is a stage for events beyond the natural world. The barns of Oak Ridge Farm are notorious among visitors for their paranormal activity. Barn doors often open and close without wind or human intervention. Floorboards creak as if under invisible weight, and objects occasionally shift or move inexplicably. Visitors have reported hearing faint voices, sometimes calling names or murmuring indistinct words. The sounds drift unpredictably, appearing to follow people from one part of the barn to another. Shadowy figures have been glimpsed among the stalls, sometimes tending phantom animals or moving with deliberate care, only to vanish into the shadows. The barns themselves seem to act as vessels for the lingering energy of those who once worked there, holding memories that play out repeatedly for any visitor sensitive enough to notice. Oak Ridge Farm's environment further enhances its haunting qualities. Fog often creeps across fields, shrouding silos and barns in a ghostly haze. Twilight stretches shadows across the land, elongating familiar structures and lending them an uncanny appearance. Even the wind contributes, carrying unexplained noises across the property. Phantom footsteps, whispers, or the distant clanging of tools that seem to come from nowhere. The combination of atmospheric conditions, darkness, and stillness transforms the farm into a place where natural and supernatural forces appear to intersect seamlessly. Visitors frequently report the unsettling sensation of being observed. Phantom footsteps follow them along gravel paths, barn doors move with no apparent cause, and shadows appear to linger at the periphery of vision. Figures often stand silently near silos or along fences before vanishing when attention is turned. Some have described fleeting glimpses of human shapes moving across open fields, their presence accompanied by cold drafts and a feeling of palpable attention. These experiences contribute to an enduring sense of unease, making it clear that Oak Ridge Farm is a place where past and present exist simultaneously, often in ways that defy explanation. The history of Oak Ridge Farm is woven tightly into the paranormal activity reported there. Generations of farmers and laborers lived and worked the land, experiencing both the ordinary routines of rural life and the tragedies that inevitably occur on working farms. Many of the shadowy figures, phantom animals, and unexplained sounds appear to be echoes of these past lives, replaying daily tasks, movements, or moments of distress. The farm acts as a conduit for memory, preserving fragments of lives long gone and projecting them onto the landscape for modern visitors to witness. Those who leave Oak Ridge Farm often carry with them the lingering sensation of what they have experienced. Shadowy figures continue to haunt the mind's eye. Phantom footsteps echo in memory, and the faint sounds of doors swinging or tools shifting remain vivid long after departing. Silos, barns, and open fields seem alive with presence, where the ordinary meets the extraordinary. Oak Ridge Farm is not simply a rural property. It is a living testament to the lives and labor of those who came before. A place where shadow and memory intertwine, and where the boundaries between the natural and the supernatural remain forever blurred. Cedar Hollow Farm, nestled deep within the rolling hills of North Carolina, presents an image of rural tranquility during the day. Sunlight illuminates sprawling fields, barns with weathered wood stand stoically, and old fences stretch across pastures in neat, orderly lines. Yet beneath this picturesque exterior lies a place with a reputation for the inexplicable. Locals and visitors alike recount sightings of apparitions moving silently at night, shadowy figures near the barns, and phantom animals appearing at dusk, creating an atmosphere where the past seems never to have left. Cedar Hollow Farm is a property where life and memory intermingle, leaving traces of those who once inhabited it long after they are gone. During daylight, the farm seems almost ordinary. Birds sing from the edges of the pastures, the wind rustles through the trees, and the barns and silos maintain their stoic presence against the horizon. Yet even in the brightness of day, Certain visitors note subtle signs of the unusual. Shadows appear where none should fall, seemingly moving independently of the sun. A faint chill may drift across the fields without warning, or a distant sound, a creak of a board, a whisper of wind carries, with an unnatural resonance. Longtime locals often speak of an energy that persists on the property, something almost tangible, as though the farm itself remembers every life that passed through it, every footstep, every voice that once echoed in the barns. The barns at Cedar Hollow Farm are central to many of the reported phenomena. Shadowy figures are frequently seen moving in and around them, their forms indistinct, yet unmistakably human. Witnesses describe seeing these apparitions performing tasks long associated with farm life, sweeping floors, moving hay bales, or tending to animals that no longer exist. Doors often swing open and closed with no apparent cause. Floorboards creak as though under unseen weight, and tools occasionally shift from one place to another, as if guided by invisible hands. Some visitors have heard faint murmurs or whispers, sometimes repeating words or phrases from conversations that likely occurred decades ago. The barns appear to act as vessels for memory, preserving echoes of labor, life, and sometimes tragedy. Fields surrounding the farm are equally active with inexplicable activity. Phantom animals are reported to appear at dusk, their forms semi-transparent but unmistakably real. Horses graze silently in empty pastures, cows wander along fence lines, and occasionally, the fleeting shape of a chicken or goat can be glimpsed before it vanishes as if absorbed by the evening mist. These sightings often coincide with strange noises, soft hoofbeats, the lowing of a cow, or the fluttering of wings, though no animals are present. Shadowy human figures have also been seen walking between fence lines or moving along paths that have long been abandoned, sometimes appearing to inspect the crops or tend to livestock. The fields act as a liminal space where time blurs, revealing glimpses of the farm's living past to those willing to notice. Cedar Hollow Farm is particularly active during twilight and nighttime. As darkness falls, the familiar landscape takes on an uncanny quality. Shadows lengthen and stretch across fields, fog drifts in from surrounding woods, and the sounds of the farm carried differently in the stillness. Visitors often report feeling watched, even when no one is present. Apparitions appear along fences, silhouettes move near barns, and occasional cold spots create a palpable sense of presence. Phantom footsteps can be heard across gravel paths, sometimes following an individual, only to fade abruptly. The combination of darkness, mist, and quiet amplifies the farm's otherworldly atmosphere, making it clear that the land holds remnants of lives that continue to echo long after death. Ghostly phenomena at Cedar Hollow Farm are not limited to visual or auditory experiences. Some visitors report feeling brief touches or brushes along their clothing or shoulders, as though invisible hands are present. Objects may move slightly, tools might shift, and doors sometimes swing open or closed without wind or human interference. Lights from nearby houses or distant roads can flicker in unexpected ways, and some claim to see faint glows emanating from the barns or the edges of pastures. All of these experiences contribute to the sense that the farm is alive with memory and energy, a place where the natural and supernatural intersect seamlessly. The history of Cedar Hollow Farm is intertwined with its paranormal reputation. For generations, families have lived and worked the land, experiencing the routines, challenges, and occasional tragedies of rural life. Many of the apparitions, human or animal, appear to replay aspects of this history, performing chores or moving along paths that were once well-trodden. The barns, silos, and fields seem to retain a residual energy, a reflection of lives spent laboring and living in close connection to the land. Visitors often describe a sense of continuity, as though they are witnessing echoes of the past playing out alongside the present. Those who leave Cedar Hollow Farm often carry the experience with them long after their visit. Shadowy figures walking silently across fields, phantom livestock grazing in misty pastures, and the soft echo of voices in abandoned barns linger in memory. The creak of a floorboard, the swing of a door, or the feel of a sudden chill can remain vivid for hours or days. Reminders that the farm is more than a simple piece of property. Cedar Hollow Farm is not merely a rural landscape. It is a place where life, memory, and the unseen converge, a living testament to the enduring presence of those who once called it home, ensuring that the farm's story continues to unfold in the shadows and the twilight hours. Hawthorne Farm, nestled in the rolling hills of Arkansas, appears during the day as a peaceful rural retreat. Its fields stretch wide and green, dotted with aged barns and weathered fences, and silos rise solemnly against the horizon. Yet beneath this pastoral calm lies a history marked by tragedy, and the farm has long been known among locals and visitors for its haunting phenomena. Witnesses report ghostly children running across open fields, shadowy figures lingering in barns, and mysterious lights that appear and vanish without explanation. Hawthorne Farm is a place where past and present converge, and where the weight of lost lives seems to linger in the air. During daylight, the farm seems ordinary. Birds chirp along fence lines, cattle graze in the open pastures, and the wind rustles gently through the corn and wheat. Yet even in these bright hours, subtle signs hint at something more. Shadows sometimes seem to move independently of their source, shifting along tree lines or darting across the edges of barns. Occasional cold drafts sweep across the fields, chilling visitors inexplicably. Longtime locals speak of a lingering energy that pervades the property, a palpable sense that the land itself carries memories of those who suffered and perished there, especially the children lost to accidental drownings in the farm's small pond decades ago. The barn structures on Hawthorne Farm are frequently the site of paranormal activity. Shadowy figures are often observed moving inside or around them, their forms indistinct but undeniably human. Visitors describe seeing these apparitions performing tasks associated with farm life, stacking hay, checking tools, or tending phantom animals. Doors creak and swing open on their own, floorboards groan under unseen weight, and occasional objects appear to shift inexplicably. Some have reported hearing faint whispers, echoes of conversations or cries, sometimes repeating names of children or the farm's former residents. The barns act almost as vessels of memory, preserving moments of labor, life, and the tragedies that unfolded there. The open fields of Hawthorne Farm are another hotspot for strange phenomena. Ghostly children are said to appear at dusk, running or playing along fence lines, their laughter faint but haunting. Shadowy figures sometimes move through the tall grass or along the corn rows, seemingly performing routines long forgotten. Visitors have reported fleeting glimpses of phantom animals, horses, dogs, or chickens that vanish when approached. Footsteps echo across empty fields in the quiet of twilight, and cold spots often appear unexpectedly, giving the sense that unseen presences are nearby. These events often intensify on misty evenings, when fog drifts across pastures, adding an ethereal quality to every movement and sound. Hawthorne Farm becomes particularly unsettling at night. As darkness envelops the property, familiar structures take on an uncanny appearance. The barns loom like shadowy sentinels, and the silos seem to stretch endlessly into the gloom. Visitors frequently describe the sensation of being watched, feeling eyes on their backs even when no one is present. Apparitions appear along fence lines, or sometimes at the edge of fields, moving silently before vanishing. Phantom footsteps often follow explorers as they walk along gravel paths, fading and reappearing unpredictably. Mysterious lights flicker across the farm, appearing near barns, the pond, or along old paths, only to vanish the next moment, leaving observers questioning their own perception. The pond at Hawthorne Farm is central to its haunted reputation. Decades ago, several children tragically drowned in its waters, leaving a mark that seems to persist in the air itself. Visitors have reported seeing faint outlines of small figures near the water's edge, glimpses of children playing or standing silently, watching the darkness. Sometimes, soft splashes are heard, as if something has disturbed the water, though no one is present. The pond appears to serve as a locus for the residual energy of those lost, their presence recurring nightly for those sensitive to the supernatural. Even ordinary objects seem to become conduits for the farm's haunted energy. Tools may shift slightly, doors may creak open, and barn windows sometimes reflect shapes that do not belong to any living being. Lights appear and vanish mysteriously, illuminating portions of the property only to leave them in darkness moments later. Wind chimes or hanging implements occasionally move as if brushed by invisible hands, adding to the pervasive sense that the farm is alive with memories that refuse to fade. Hawthorne Farm's environment amplifies its paranormal activity. Twilight brings lengthening shadows that stretch across fields and pastures. Fog rolling in from nearby woods adds a spectral quality to every movement. Even the wind carries sounds that seem not entirely natural: whispers, faint laughter, or the soft patter of footsteps echoing across empty fields. The combination of darkness, stillness, and mist transforms the farm into a realm where time feels fluid, and where the boundary between the living and the dead blurs. Visitors leaving Hawthorne Farm often carry with them lingering impressions of what they experienced: ghostly children running across fields, shadowy figures tending invisible chores, and fleeting lights that vanish as mysteriously as they appeared remain vivid in memory. Even days later, the echoes of laughter, footsteps, or creaking barn doors continue to play in the mind's ear. Hawthorne Farm is not merely farmland. It is a place where history, tragedy, and memory manifests in tangible ways. It is a property where shadows of the past continue to roam, ensuring that the stories of lost lives, ghostly apparitions, and unexplained phenomena persist in the quiet hills of Arkansas, unseen but profoundly felt. Farms are meant to sustain life, but these 25 haunted farms remind us that the land holds memories of tragedy and restless spirits. From ghostly farmers tending fields at night to shadowy figures disappearing in silos and cornfields, the dark secrets of these properties refuse to rest. Thank you for joining us on this journey across America's haunted farms. Subscribe, like, and click the bell to continue exploring the places where history, tragedy, and the supernatural collide, where the echoes of the past still roam the fields.